Good morning, students. So, online students, am I audible? Visible? Today we have this last class on RC, and as you know that in today's class, the intensive discussion of two papers, 2024 and 2025. We will cover by and large these two papers, and then the strategy for CSAT 2026. Because from here on, you will have to follow a practice regime. What is the significance of mock tests, how to continue on this practice track, how to be in touch with RC, right? So different dimensions we will try to cover in today's class. It's very important from all these perspectives. And so the first thing, CSAT 2024 I will start with. Once I am done with both the years paper, we will start the strategy. So CSAT 2024, this paper, there were 27 questions given in this paper. And the question was a mixed bag, main idea, assumption, highest number was main idea and assumption. And then we had a couple of questions on implication and other stuff. So I suppose everybody has done it. Huh? Kar liya solve? Huh? I can see some new faces in my last class, your day one. This combination is very paradoxical. You please, you are, huh? You grinning so much. आपको आप समझ रहे हो ना आप? Where have you been? Okay. आप छुट्टी में वापस आए? काम है इसलिए वापस आए. Okay. And did you follow the classes? Recording and all? Have you done the papers? Thank you. You? Yes. Where have you been? I understand. The first batch is generally like this. There is a relaxation, complacency. अभी तो बहुत समय है, बहुत time है. You? The first day? Literally first day? Huh? We are here on first day and today on last day. You're being too technical. You are a student, I know that. I understand hybrid. But this hybrid and online and offline. But have you been following this class regularly? So I suppose you have done this paper 2024. फिर क्या मतलब है hybrid और ये सब? आपने भी बोला कि हाँ yes I have been following your classes. You have not done this. And what is the purpose of following? Physical presence is. So 23 आपने solve किया था. 25 जो कर लिया वो आप कर चुके हैं. You first day. So hybrid student, online only. Did you call me in the last class? Got a call from the old batch. So you wrote 2025. The CSAT could not be qualified, could not be cleared. Paper. Right. The rest are those familiar faces, regular ones, except you. हाँ हाँ अपने घर जाओगे, मेरे घर थोड़ी जाओगे. आई वेंट होम, ये क्या न्यूज़ है? तो सारे ही अपने घर से आ रहे हैं. एक्सटेंडेड रक्षाबंधन, थोड़ी दिन और रुक जाते तो दिवाली ऐड कर लेते इसमें. Yes. And have you followed the classes online? By follow, you understand what do I mean? That would be my next question. You missed or attended? But in the last class, I emphasized on these two papers. The very last class you could not attend. Highly diplomatic. सारे attend किए सिर्फ except last class. You have been regular, but you were absent in the last 1 or 2 classes. Done this. Good job. Have you done this Shreya is absent today, and then there are Rajat. Have you done paper? You were absent in 2023 paper. Why? Could not do on that day. Now, okay. Lots of people are feeling under the weather nowadays. Please be careful. It's quite risky. Acha, online students, I suppose all of you have done it sitting at home in cozy environment. And बढ़िया, ठीक है, चले तो 24 discuss करते हैं so that we have time to address your doubts. Individual doubts can be taken in today's class. So let's start with passage number 1. अच्छा, those who have not done it, do follow with the same sincerity. कि आप जल्दी से पढ़ भी लेंगे अगर आप नहीं थोड़ा सा कोशिश करोगे तो पैसेज में. So there were 2 questions asked on this is A series. Paper 23 का ये A series है. The students who have the soft copy will have to search for it. 25 अभी नहीं कर रहे हैं, 24 first. So this passage everybody has got. It has assumption and inference both. CSAT 2024. This is the paper. अब देखिए, this passage is the first question is inference. Yes, inference. Have you got the passage, class? Have you got it? नहीं मिला आपको? देखो ना, फर्स्ट लाइन ये A series में according to the Food and Agriculture Organization 1/3 of food produced. It talks about the wastage of food. That wastage is taking at every point, starting from agricultural field till it reaches to the thali of the consumer. It is wasted at every junction. It's a wide spread, and then author talks about its effects, very devastating effects it has on resources, on land, water. He goes into the detail of that. So pehla question, inference ka, quite simple question, just a cakewalk. Inference should be followed logically and should have the data backup. The current methods of food distribution are solely responsible for the loss and wastage of food. कौन सा method only responsible है? Methods of food distribution. Whereas the author has said कि food consumption also wastes. Household consumption. So it is incorrect. You are lucky UPSC has given you one visible extreme. And you can cross check the data. Land productivity is adversely affected by the prevailing trend of food loss and wastage. Absolutely correct. Land productivity is affected by the prevailing, and I show you the data for this. Land productivity. You look at this line. The increasing wastage also results in land degradation by about 45%. Land productivity is affected. तो इतना आसान इन्फ्रेंस का क्वेश्चन आप एक्सपेक्ट नहीं कर सकते. तो 1 and 2 आपका क्लियर हो गया. 1 is incorrect. मेरा आंसर तो पहले ही निकल आया. We need not go further. Answer is B because 1 is present in 3 options. That's why I said always look at the option combination. So this answer, everybody has got the same. चलिए assumption पे चलते हैं. I want everyone to be attentive so that ज़्यादा time न लगे discussion में, and we can address the doubts and strategy part. Assumption. The food distribution mechanism needs to reduce the loss and wastage of food. Assumption is the opinion or the thought or that should be compatible with the passage. For the passage argument, this must be aligning, supporting. This is absolutely correct. क्योंकि इतना ज़्यादा wastage है at every junction that it needs to be reimagined. यानी सब कुछ structured way में it should be corrected. Then ensuring the reduction of wastage or loss of food is a social and moral responsibility of all citizens. Of the word citizen has come in. You see, when this paper was out, I was of this opinion that second must also be correct. But 99% people said no, second is incorrect. I show you why this one. Because it says that food is lost or wasted throughout the supply chain from initial agricultural production to final household consumption. Household consumption यानी घर वाले भी खाना बना के वेस्ट कर रहे हैं, एक्सेस बना रहे हैं, जो भी है. तो फाइनल हाउस होल्ड कंजम्पशन इज ऑल्सो सोर्स ऑफ वेस्टेज. अब हाउस होल्ड कंजम्पशन इट मीन्स द सिटीजन, द पीपल कैन बी इन्वॉल्व इन, राइट. हियर यू कैन से एग्रीकल्चर प्रोडक्शन में तो चलो गवर्नमेंट एंड द अदर बॉडीज कैन प्ले अ रोल, बट ये तो आप प्रॉब्लम आपके घर के अंदर भी आ गया. तो इसलिए इंश्योर, एंड सिंस ही हैज टोल्ड यू द ड्रास्टिक इफेक्ट्स इट हैज ऑन रिसोर्सेज, so that's why this assumption is also supporting the thought of the author. That's a responsibility because it creates wastage, and wastage has very deplorable effects on sources. So both are valid assumption. See, because of the household word, घर में भी waste हो रहा है. Sorry, it means the people are involved. So when as household consumption can be tapped in, can be plugged in, if the people realize that this wastage is causing serious effects, that's why it is their responsibility as well, a moral responsibility, as it says. So it's a moral responsibility that they don't waste. Had the author mentioned that wastage is done only by others, the government and the farmlands and all, we could not have accepted. So because of that. Second passage is on economy. Again the same set. First line dekh lijiye. As inflation rises, even governments previously committed to budget discipline are spending freely to help households. Got it? First question again, inference. अब देखिए, the first statement, central banks cannot bring down inflation without budgetary backing. Absolutely correct. Central banks cannot bring down inflation without budgetary backing. Any central banks alone cannot do it. They need support. Of this, where does this come from? Author has told you the intricate relationship between the two. Look at this line. Without the fiscal backup, monetary policy eventually loses traction. Fiscal backup, yani government, which controls it. Monetary policy alone cannot, it loses its effect. So you have the data for the first statement. Second says the effects of monetary policy depend on the fiscal policies pursued by the government. This very same line can be used for the same. Second. So both as inferences are correct inferences. Both 1 and 2. Second question is assumption. It gives you good practice. Back-to-back inference and assumption based on the same passage helps you to develop your perspective. And notice the boundaries, the limits. Fiscal policies of governments are solely responsible for higher prices. Yani, it's not monetary. Perhaps contradicting the passage. Yes. Second, higher prices do not affect the long-term government bonds. Nothing has been told us about the government bonds, so we don't have data for this statement. Right. So we cannot even indirectly connect with this. That's the reason I'm saying it. Right. We should always have a direct or an indirect connection. Logical question में direct or indirect connection should be there. But आप ये नहीं कह इसके बारे में कुछ नहीं. So correct answer should be D, Delhi, neither. For the next question. Up now, this question, today we consider cities such as New York, London and Paris as some of the most iconic cities in the world is because plans carrying a heavy system approach were imposed on their precincts. Precincts are called the areas, particular areas maybe had been marketed for certain activities. So now this word iconic cities, when he says, it means author is representing New York and London and Paris in a positive way. Iconic एक appreciating word है ना, iconic cities. एक icon बना दिया उनको. अब why are they icon and all the detail is given, how their planning has been done, question number 11. अब बताना है आपको inference again. Curriculum for urban planning courses should have diverse and interdisciplinary approach. Absolutely correct inference. We have the direct data support for this. Urban planning should have diverse and interdisciplinary approach. While discussing the design, the town planning of these iconic cities, author tells us the detail. He says the early universities of the West which began to train professionals in planning, spawned some of the most ingenious planners who were experts in these domains. This was because, अब क्यों ऐसा हुआ, expert क्यों बने? These very subjects were absorbed into the planning curriculum that had its roots in the social sciences, geography, architecture. Planning in India and its education differ from the West. हमारे यहाँ अलग. तो चलिए हमारे यहाँ तो बाद में बात आएंगी, but you got different subjects are there. When the town planners were given the training into various disciplines, that's why their exposure was wider, and we get that it supports A option directly. Rest of the options have weakening. Anybody doubtful with any? So question number 11 mein, in case you have doubts, you can mention the option and ask your question. Online students, while writing the answer, do mention the question number, and especially in case of doubt. Why this, why not that, kind of. Now, second question is assumption. India needs a new generation of urban professionals with knowledge relevant to modern urban practice. Yes. Because these iconic cities were designed to develop heavy systems, and their exposure and training was from the different fields. So that suggests a kind of modern thing. In India, the planning differs. It means that in India, we are not following the same. So while author appreciating those cities for their excellent town planning, he says that India, it's different. So we can get this assumption from there. In India, India needs new kind of training because our cities are not planned that way. Come again? नहीं बन रहा. अब देखो, अच्छा, अब इंडिया, अब ना कैसे डिफर करता है? Does he appreciate India on the same front? From this single line is sufficient. When he says कि iconic cities and all the cities mentioned here, none of them are Indian cities. He says the West. अब आपने देखा ये, the backbone of the system theory is the process of translating social, spatial and cultural desirables into mathematical models. कहाँ गया West वाला? ये, the early universities of the West. Does he mention East? And then he says in India it differs. So it means that India is not in that bracket. Something that has been, suppose I appreciate on writing and I say कि those students, these students who have written this way, they are actually correct or right, and they, because they have involved. It means the students who have not written this way can draw their some conclusion from there. So it is like Indian cities are not mentioned and they are appreciated, the West cities, the planning there. In India it is different. From here we can make out ki assumption hai author ka. So isliye this assumption, this yes, India needs, because had he mentioned that India followed a different path of town planning, and this path was successful or equally good or brought some new features, तो फिर हम कह सकते थे कि यार India, how can you blame that Indian planning was not up to the mark? But ये setup से तो ये सीधा ये point निकल के आता है. तो this is, India needs a new generation with knowledge relevant to modern urban practices, because modern system of heavy system, developing heavy system approach, ये यहाँ है और यहाँ नहीं है. Town planners, that means contextual कुछ word की sense निकालने पड़ेंगे ना. New generation of urban professionals with knowledge relevant to modern urban practice. Modern urban practice. Urban professionals does not mean here doctors or engineers. He means architects. He means town planners, basically. It does not mean doctors and CAs and all. So since in this context he is talking about the town planning, city planning, so of course that urban professional is relevant. Second is Indian universities at present. Ab dekho, it is going specifically about Indian universities at present have no capacity or potential to impart training in system approach. Ab look at this, they have no capacity. How do we know? They don't have capacity. They are not doing, yes, we get it from here. Our cities, our universities have not done the way the West have done the planning. So here We don't have the data for this. So second is out. Second is incorrect. India is it's some कम mention की बात नहीं है dear. You understand? It's a question of assumption, right? So this first of all be clear about this कि कम mention और ज़्यादा mention होता है main idea में बात. ये सर इसका space नहीं है, इसका यहाँ बहुत passing comment है, ऐसा कुछ. Assumption में it could be connected to anything. Now once he mentions India in the last sentence, from here we get to know कि in India the planning, the urban areas and their planning is not as it is done in the West. तो बस ये last line से आ रहा है. Because it goes, you know, it says that its education differs, but you don't know that the universities of India do not have capacity. Having no capacity, matlab they can't do anything in this case. They are not doing this way is one thing, and having no capacity to do this is another thing. These are the two different things. जैसे आप कोई काम पर्टिकुलर वे में करते हैं, ठीक है, एक दूसरी तरीके से नहीं करते हैं. सपोज यू फॉलो प्रोसेस बी, यू आर नॉट फॉलोइंग प्रोसेस ए. So we can say that you are not following process A, but we cannot say that you do not have any capacity to follow process A. If I say this, then we need to have data. So universities को यहाँ पे highlight किया कि they have no capacity. I wish with the UPSC could have used here a better word for clarity, though they have used a contextual sense here. First में जो contextual sense है, like they have said urban practice, or they have said urban professionals. But here by saying urban professionals, they mean that those who are charting out, who are making plans and for urban areas, who are doing the planning. So they did not use, they could have used their more expressive word. But about the second, if anybody chooses, then the person is not looking at the data, because ये बहुत specific and high tall claim है, for which you don't have data. Next passage. Not every voice on the internet commands the same kind of audience. Absolutely correct. You pay to the Google and they will show you on the top of the search. So not every voice have the same command. When anonymous private entities with high capital can pay for more space for their opinions, they are effectively buying a louder voice in political discourse. Now, this passage everybody has got? The question asks you about the central idea. The first main idea based question. The central idea is that very core of the passage, like the point that he has discussed in broad sense. What is the crux of that point? What is the central part of that point on which the whole passage turns? सारा idea का सबसे main point बताइए. So a core or a central idea is a very specific thing. Constructed as a marketplace of views, social media ensures instant access to information. अब देखिए, when you say instant access to information, ये एक पॉजिटिव सा सेंस देता है, जबकि पैसेज में ऑथर हैज क्रिटिसाइज्ड दैट द इंटरनेट स्पेस, दैट कंपनी व्हिच हैव मोर कैपिटल एंड इफ दे बाय दैट दे विल हैव लाउडर स्पेस. So it is on the negative side, and this option is giving us a positive sense about the social media. So of course it is not good. It does not represent the author's attitude correctly. Main idea में आपको दोनों बात देखना होगा, the point made by the author and with the correct attitude. If he has painted something plus positive, it should represent that. The correct option, if the author has represented something in a negative shade, the correct option should represent that negative shade. तो shade भी नहीं change कर सकते और topic भी नहीं change कर सकते. Main idea में ये है. Social media are not ideal or moral institution, but the products built by companies to make profits. Sounds good, right? And social media have been created to strengthen democracy. अब देखिए, democracy, the purpose of that is not discussed here, rather the negative point. So here the B option. well informed, they are inevitable. We do not go out of the passage for main. तो सभी का आंसर आया ऑप्शन बी. नेक्स्ट is assumption. अब assumption will always be in support. So देखिए first one, internet is not inclusive enough. Absolutely correct. By inclusive is anywhere by inclusion we mean that even the lower people at the lower pedestal are also taken into the fold. छोटे भाई का क्रीमी तो आ ही जाएगा, ऊपर वाला तो आ ही जाएगा, नीचे वाला नहीं बचना चाहिए. तो of course the internet is not inclusive enough. That's the correct thought and connects with the presentation in the passage. Internet can adversely affect the quality of politics in a country. Also correct. And how it can affect the quality? C is the answer. I show you the data. You have the doubt in second? First में. Yes. बताइए, what is your doubt? नहीं आने आपने फिर अपना assumption बना लिया. यहाँ इंटरनेट पे आने की बात नहीं है, यहाँ पे किसकी लाउडर प्रेजेंस है. तो द फर्स्ट लाइन से ही आपको मिल जाता है. Not every voice on the internet commands the same kind of audience. Then he explains, when anonymous private entities जिसके पास पैसा है with high capital can pay for more space for their opinions, they are effectively buying a louder voice. It means the one that has less money left out. Internet is not inclusive, could have also been correct because it repaints the picture in that way, right? Second में कोई doubt किसी को? Because the last part of political discourse it has given a political discourse in the digital till the last supporting the second. You got it correct? Okay. चलो जी next passage. Very good passage about education. There are two questions based on this. Siddharth, your answer is correct. Achha, online students, because while discussing this paper, I most of the time look here on the screen, though I get back there. So in case you have some doubts, do mention that why not this option in question number that. So please be specific to that. No? अगर आप कभी ऐसे लिख देते हैं कि 8B, so I do not get whether you are, in case of doubts, you always write why not C in question number 8. By the time children reach class 8, the bulk of them tend to be in the age range of 13 years to 15 years. But in our country, about a quarter of all children in class 8 struggle with reading simple text. चलिए ये passage है, everybody has got. Their assumption is the first question. Question number 21. For effective school education, parents have greater role than the governments. Nowhere this comparison is done. So we don't have any data. And nobody is allowed to use his own analysis. It should be based on the passage only. The first is out. Second, school curriculum that conforms to today's requirements and is uniform for the entire country may address the issue brought out. जानबूझ के deliberately this option has been written, which is from the GS perspective it is correct, but they are playing a game with you. They are using a kind of otherwise GS based acceptable claim but questionable for the given passage. क्यों? क्योंकि ये बात करता है स्कूल करिकुलम की, that conforms to today's requirement. देखो कितना पॉजिटिव है. According to the, and this uniform for the entire country. This is also a major suggestion given before NEP 2020 that we should have uniform curriculum throughout the country. लेकिन ये passage का मूल बिंदु, the discussion of the passage is not about the curriculum, change in curriculum. Rather it highlights a basic lacking कि एक जो 8th का बच्चा है in class 8 struggle with reading simple text and more than half are still unable to do basic arithmetic operations. प्लस माइनस मल्टीप्लाई नहीं कर पाता, पढ़ नहीं पाता. इसका मतलब it is not about the curriculum, but it is about the retention that they have got, retention of learning, which is highly questionable. So the curriculum is secondary here. जो curriculum पढ़ा रहे हैं वो तो अलग बात है. Whatever they have been taught, they are unable to do even the basics. So that's why the second statement is also incorrect. तो जल्दी में अगर आपको कोई चूज कर लेगा सिर्फ जीएस पे तो वो गलत हो जाएगा, तो इसलिए ऑप्शंस assumptions में you should always look for the data, neither should be the answer. Second question, central idea. Which option class? Public policy should ensure that competencies and achievements of young people are aligned with their expectations. Sounds good. Total eradication of poverty in the country will resolve the issue of underperformance of our school. A total eradication of poverty, author has not said so. Monetary incentives to parents and teachers is a strategy. No, India is not going to take advantage of the demographic dividend. बेटा 8th class के बच्चों की बात हो रही है. Demographic dividend is related to the young people who are in an age group of production, can do something. So it's a UPSC made weak options. C is the only option. Now we take it for granted now that science has a social responsibility. The idea would not have occurred to Newton or Galileo. Got the passage? मिल गया आपको ये? Let's go to the question. Which option you have chosen class for 23? Science must pursue truth but be responsible for social welfare. D option. Thinking of the author about the science. Anyone doubtful? किसी को doubt? Got the question? नहीं मिला? ये हाँ बेटे ये मेन आइडिया में होगा. कहाँ मिला आपको मेन आइडिया में ना? डिटेल बेस्ड में, सॉरी इट्स इन डिटेल बेस्ड. Science must value the commitment of science has not been discussed anywhere. Commitment of scientists. Scientific awareness it doesn't talk about. And this industrial revolution was made possible by the advancements in science. So specifically this is not discussed in the passage. The author has only mentioned that Galileo and Newton, yani early scientists, they thought that their duty or responsibility is to tell the world the things as they are without any filtration. But then author mentioned no, science has also social responsibility as well. So then he goes into the details. D is the answer. Now comes a passage slightly challenging in terms of language. Abhi tak, till now, you have seen the passage, very catchy, very common. So such kind of passages, they keep giving almost every year, 1 or 2 passages of this type, which are based on some abstract topic. Kaise topic pe? Abstract topics. Some philosophical touch they have, right? So I would say that when you have to choose a passage, suppose you have less time in paper and you have got 2 passages. Always look at the subject topic of the passage. The one that you are more comfortable with should go for that. तो इसके साथ में अगर एक environmental passage है, market economy passage है, that passage would be simpler for you, because here you will have to, maybe you will have to regress, go back, reread, ऐसा वहाँ पे नहीं करना पड़ेगा. चलिए passage का question देखिए. It says emphatically conveyed by the author of the passage. What is emphatically conveyed? यानी what is the message of the author that he emphasizes on? लेकिन इसको 2 ऑप्शन में ब्रेक करके रखा है. Without science, mankind could not have continued to exist till today. Absurd. Absolutely wrong. Continued to exist today. Without it, existence ही नहीं होता. यानी they would not have survived. हम नहीं कह सकते. Passage में author का thought, he has not emphasized on this. I'll take you to there. It is the science that will ultimately determine the destiny of mankind. Science will ultimately determine. No, he's saying that actually we put the science to some use. good use or bad use. We do it. So how can we say that science will ultimately determine our destiny when it is our own created thing? So the both are incorrect. D is the answer. Of any student who has issues here, history of science is the real history of mankind. अच्छा, there is a thing called epigram. ये है यहाँ लिखा हुआ word epigram. What is an epigram? When a short statement or maybe some poetic verse, say a couplet or a short prose statement, in a very emphatic manner, when it tries to convey some message, we call that epigram. एक शॉर्ट का कोई ऐसा स्टेटमेंट या कोई कविता का कोई अंश, कोई पार्ट, कोई कपलेट जो बहुत ही प्रभावशाली ढंग से कोई बात कहता हो, उसमें बात में विजडम हो या कोई किसी तरह का कोई बात हो, वो उसको हम कहते हैं एपिग्राम. अब ये लाइन, the history of science is the real history of mankind, is an epigram, because in this short statement we have a very emphatic and very in-depth sense. The author has taken it from there. ऐसे ही होता है proverb. Proverbs are sayings, wise words, कहावत, right? And we believe in them because of the sagacity, the practicality. तो proverbs भी होते हैं. अब like we say that honesty is the best policy. It's a proverb. Many people believe in this. तो epigram और proverb में difference क्या हुआ? Epigram, you may know the person who has said this, and the said statement, the epigram, may not have a very in-depth appeal, and many people agree with that. Whereas in a proverb, you find that in-depth and wisdom is there, and then many people believe in that. That's why we have the proverbs that in certain regions, जैसे Chinese proverbs हैं, African proverbs हैं, Latin proverbs हैं. It means that whole area in that geographical part, people by and large believe in that. लेकिन epigram अलग भी हो सकता है. जैसे अब suppose Trump has said something and that particular statement is just in wide circulation in the media because of maybe it has some kind of funny touch to it, humoristic touch to it, some kind of criticism in it, or maybe some wisdom. But the proverb is not like that. Proverb stands for its in-depth sense and the belief of the human, of the people in by and large. So I have discussed these two because कल के कोई पैसेज में अगर proverb आता है या कुछ ऐसा आता है तो फिर आप उसको, जैसे आप ऐसे में टॉपिक्स में lots of proverbs you come across nowadays. Yes, please. Second, this proverb. Second option B. अच्छा अच्छा, you have, ठीक है. So dear, he has discussed this thing, and I just wanted to take you to the. I explained the epigram, took time for this, but मेरा point ये था कि I should clarify to you that what is the author's stand on it, because the second question is assumption. So we must be clear about author's opinion. So here he has mentioned कि like most epigrams, 19th century writer links science with its background. And like most epigrams, its power lies in emphasizing by contrast an aspect of truth which may be easily overlooked. In this case, it is easy to overlook the relation between science and mankind and to treat the former as some abstract third party which can sometimes be praised for its beneficial influence but frequently and conveniently blamed for the horrors of war. An author has objection to this understanding. कि आप जब benefit करता है तो तारीफ करो science की, you praise science, and when it horrors of war, you criticize it. He says no, science on itself does not do anything wrong or right. How you use it, it depends on that. So he from here his stand is clear that science and mankind cannot be divorced from time to time at men's convenience. Yet we have seen that in spite of countless opportunities of improvements, the opening years of the present period of civilization have been dominated by international conflicts. Is this the inevitable result of the progress of science, or does the fault lie elsewhere? At this question, he ends the para. So from his discussion, we get to know that yes, the fault lies elsewhere. He wants to say that. It does not lie, the onus does not lie on the science. How the man has put it to use, good use or bad use, it depends on that. तो आपका जो second statement है देखिए, it is a sign that will ultimately determine the destiny of mankind does not match with the last letter part. That's why wrong. So D is the answer for main idea, and for assumption, the horrors of modern life are an inevitable result of the progress of science. Of course not, contradicting the author's thought. Yeah. Second, the aspect of truth likely to be overlooked is that science is what man has made it. Absolutely matches with the second part. So assumption, author's assumption here. Only with long experience and opening of his wares on many a beach, this passage. Question 33 is, when we meet other people while we travel, we learn to differentiate between is a very simple question, and it should be local values and universal values. Where does it come from? When we travel, what we learn to differentiate between. देखिए दो बात यहाँ लिखा हुआ है आपने. Whereas language is not small. Will the merchant come to know the worth of what he carries and what is parochial and what is universal in his price? Parochial is local. इसलिए वो, or universal is universal. Such deliberate goods as justice, love and honor, courtesy, and indeed all the things we care for are valid everywhere. It means these are the universal values. They are present everywhere, though they are present in different forms, but they are there. So the person who is well traveled gets to learn these values, and the chances are that if you meet them in a foreign land, and the art of learning fundamental common values is perhaps the greatest gain of travel to those who wish to live at ease among their fellows. Yes, so learning the fundamental common values is important for the person who is going to offshore places, because these values are present everywhere in different setup, in different forms. Assumption. Travel leads to an understanding of humans. Absolutely correct. Universal values are there, justice and love and compassion. Travel helps those who wish to learn fundamental common values. Yes, it helps because of his exposure given in the passage. अब थर्ड वाला उसने एक बहुत मिक्स टाइप बनाया, जहाँ पे आपको एक इमेजिनेशन पे, स्पेकुलेशन पे लेके जाता है. Person with long experience in travel can resolve differences among people. Right, but it depends on the person also, no? Whether he has learned that the person is traveling. That's what I'm saying. I'm explaining this point, why the third is wrong. Question नहीं है. So this might have been missed there. So here you look at first and second, since you know the passage, तो ये दोनों तो correct है. थर्ड वाला इसलिए wrong है, देखो आपको ये, it's very important to look into this case because ये maybe case है. Why we can say maybe? Because we don't have the sufficient data to say certainly it will happen. Person with long experience in travel can resolve differences. अब देखिए इसमें लास्ट सेंटेंस में ऑथर ने बोला है कि what kind of traveler? Greatest gain of travel to those who wish to live at ease. Maybe some travelers are there whose objective is different. So it is for those, it comes at a condition. So that's why the third statement is incorrect. तो आपके आंसर हो जाना चाहिए था इसमें 1 and 2. Unfortunately it is not there. So 1 and 2 option A is the answer. This passage you have there, conventional classroom by emphasizing fixed duration over learning effectiveness. Question 41, inference. In conventional classroom learning, the central goal is duration of learning rather than attainment of competency. In conventional classroom, encourage one size fits all. Both inferences are correct. Very simple. Good thing about 24 is that all inferences questions were just a cakewalk. Direct data was there. No complex inference was asked. दोनों correct है. आपका आंसर हो गया C. Both 1 and 2. Next question is assumption. Yes, student, what is your answer for this? The large number of workers in our country are employed in agricultural sector. India does not need to change its present conventional classroom system. Goes again. Author is doing advocacy for change and it's not changing. When with the present conventional classroom system of education, India produces sufficient numbers. Again, it does not match. So D is the answer. RC passages give you sometimes a very good food for thought. They widen your horizon of thoughts. So that's the reason I just looking at RC passages from a very myopic perspective that you are reading and just for the sake of clearing CSAT is not sufficient. When you are reading, in fact, you are picking up those finer points for writing also. The art of presenting your idea in a very effective manner. Structure and style and the layout. So every aspect you must look at. Plus the brilliant ideas. So this passage has a very brilliant idea. Conventional classroom, one set duration of class, learning for every student the same. So it has adverse effects. He says in the skill education we cannot apply the same. Now next passage, when a child reaches adolescence. Again a humanistic passage, child behavior, parenting. There is apt to be a conflict between the parents and child since the latter considers himself to be by now quite capable of managing his own affairs, while the former are often in disguise for love for power. So this tussle between parents and children. Assumption, the adolescent does not feel comfortable with his parents because they tend to be dominating and assertive. Absolutely correct. Adolescent of modern times does not have much respect for parents. You don't have data. So something which is true in the real world may not be correct. We may not choose on this basis that it is true in the real world. So we always go by the boundary of the passage, whether we have some direct or indirect support. Answer should be A. एक और क्वेश्चन इस पे बेस पे है, सेंट्रल आइडिया. Which option, class? May not be of much help when children are on their way to becoming adults. Now, any other close up? Anyone doubtful? 44 में, when children reach adolescence, involvement of parents in their lives is unnecessary. It has taken a kind of extreme position. Author is not saying it's unnecessary. He is saying when you cross the line and you become dogmatic, that's not acceptable. So dear, answer of 44A, everybody has got correct. Next passage. Yes, this one. Question 51. When an international team of scientists pumped the carbon dioxide and water mix into underground basalt rocks, basic chemistry took over. And this basic chemistry is here. The acidic mixture dissolved rocks, calcium and magnesium and formed limestone. They formed limestone. Basically, carbon dioxide is converted into stone, exclaimed the scientist. Now look at this word exclaimed. When you say something with emphasis, when you emphasize, थोड़ा force है, तो scientist इस पे जोर दे रहा है. Basically, carbon dioxide is converted into stone. So we have this mixture. Carbon dioxide and water mix was put into the raw rocks, underground basalt rocks, and what they did, they converted this calcium and magnesium and formed limestone. Carbon dioxide into limestone converted. तो आपका क्वेश्चन पूछ रहा है आपसे, सजेशन implied by this passage, प्रैक्टिकल सजेशन क्या दे रहा है पैसेज आपको? देखिए, cannot make anything about cheap and expensive, because mixing of water with carbon dioxide, you don't know whether this process is cheap or expensive. Nothing about the price is given. So he is out. This can be used as one of the methods of carbon sequestration. Yes, because carbon dioxide has been converted into limestone. So carbon sequestration, it can do. What is sequestration? Separation? Yes. So when, one by one, when you have converted the carbon dioxide into limestone, so you have actually segregated it from the environment. You can do this segregation from the environment. Okay. What the look at this. What the scientists have said. What the scientists have exclaimed. Please read that line. Basically, carbon dioxide is converted into stone. Carbon dioxide into stone. And who is emphasizing on this? The scientist. तो फिर आप वहां से सीन्स निकल रहा है कि इस मीन सीक्वेस्ट्रेशन हो सकता है इसका. अब नाउ you choose an answer because the other options are wrong, or you just choose an option because you have understood the passage in depth. दोनों तरीके हैं. आपने कहा D, why not D? D में good rock dissolving acid can be produced by mixing carbon dioxide and water. Good rock dissolving acid, how do you know? कहाँ पे ये ऐसा इसने बोला आपको कि कोई एसिड यहाँ तैयार हुआ? As it said, any acid has been made. It is only this mix underground basalt rocks, the acidic mixture dissolve. अच्छा, this acidic mixture dissolve rocks, calcium and magnesium and form limestone. ठीक है? This अब now you are choosing that good rock dissolving acid can be produced by mixing. एक particular type of rock में use किया गया ना? कौन सी rock में use किया गया? एक मिनट, आप अभी आगे मत जाओ, तो ये बात यहाँ पे ये पर्टिकुलर रॉक में यूज किया गया ये मिक्स. दिस एक्सपेरिमेंट हैज बीन डन विद दिस पर्टिकुलर रॉक, राइट? एंड यू आर चूजिंग एन ऑप्शन विच इज वेरी जनरलाइज्ड एंड सेइंग गुड रॉक डिसॉल्विंग एसिड कैन बी प्रोड्यूस्ड बाय मिक्सिंग कार्बन डाइऑक्साइड एंड वाटर. रॉक डिसॉल्विंग एसिड कैन बी. अब नाउ इट साउंड्स, देखिए बेसाल्ट गायब हो गया यहाँ से. दूसरा, आपको देखना है कि साइंटिस्ट ने किस पे एक्सक्लेम किया, यानी पैसेज का एम्फेसिस किस पे आ रहा है. क्वेश्चन आपसे पूछ रहा है सजेशन बताइए ना, तो यू विल हैव टू कंसीडर दैट वेयर द साइंटिस्ट हैव एम्फेसाइज्ड, दे एक्सक्लेम्ड ऑन दैट कि कार्बन डाइऑक्साइड इनटू लाइमस्टोन. तो यू विल ऑलवेज गो बाय दैट. क्वेश्चन है सजेशन का, इट मींस दिस सजेशन विल बी रिलेटेड टू व्हाट द साइंटिस्ट हैव एक्सक्लेम्ड एंड देयर एक्सक्लेमेशन इज दैट कि दे हैव बीन कन्वर्टेड. अब ये जो ऑप्शन आप कह रहे हो कि सर ये इन्फ्रेंस जैसा है, this can be used as one of the methods of carbon sequestration. So you are trying to, your reply that B is sounds like an inference. अगर आपका ये आंसर इस पे बेस है, तो इसका मतलब you have decided, you have assumed that a suggestion cannot be like an inference. Where that piece of knowledge has come from? A suggestion can be this, can be that, it could be in any form. We cannot say it is like an inference, so it's not correct. Right? So if you have this kind of hinge here, so please remove that. ये ऐसा ये नहीं हो सकता. नहीं, आपने बेटे इसमें बस एक काम गड़बड़ की है कि आपने इस बात पे ध्यान नहीं दिया कि जो सजेशन मांगा जा रहा है वो किसका सजेशन होगा. ऑफ कोर्स साइंटिस्ट का, क्योंकि ऑथर ने अपना तो कुछ नहीं बताया. ही हैज टोल्ड यू अ सेट ऑफ एक्सपेरिमेंट. वहां एक्सपेरिमेंट में क्या हुआ और फाइंडिंग पे साइंटिस्ट किस पे क्लेम कर रहे हैं. तो वहां पर उसने दिस पर्टिकुलर टाइप ऑफ रॉक में कार्बन डाइऑक्साइड इज कन्वर्टेड इनटू स्टोन, तो यू हैव लाइमस्टोन, तो यू हैव टू फोकस ऑन दैट पार्ट. सजेशन उसी में से निकल के आएगा. तो कार्बन सीक्वेस्ट्रेशन. नाउ दिस इज नेक्स्ट क्वेश्चन. Geographers analyzed 175 satellite images of ocean color. Class, ये passage में I would say, and in the also other types of passages में भी आपको एक चीज का ध्यान रखना है that if the passage is talking about a certain place, we must underline it while reading. If the passage is talking about a certain person or a certain party or a certain department, किसी के भी बाद में जो भी parts, wherever you come across a kind of a personal noun, जहाँ पे भी आपको दिखाई दे उसको अंडरलाइन करके पढ़ चलिए पैसेज में. It will help you a lot to remove the other options, right? अब जैसे वो पैसेज में आपने पढ़ा, कैसी रॉक थी पैसेज में, कौन सी रॉक में हुआ एक्सपेरिमेंट, तो आपने सीधे बाजार को अंडरलाइन कर लिया, है ना. क्योंकि एग्जामिनर वहां से क्या करता है, चीजों को थोड़ा जनरलाइज कर देता है, कई बार वो उसको हटा के कुछ और लग देगा. अब ये this particular thing where it happened, geographers analyze 175 satellite images of ocean color, which is an indicator of phytoplankton productivity, the ocean surface, and found that icebergs are responsible for storing up to 20% of carbon in the southern ocean. ये है आपका southern ocean के ऊपर ये बात हो. The researchers discovered that melting water from giant icebergs, which contains iron and other nutrients, supports hitherto unexpectedly high levels of phytoplankton growth. All right. So, first statement, question is assumption. Giant icebergs on productivity and food chains of the southern ocean. Absolutely correct, because phytoplanktons are mentioned. They are the primary level food. Yes. So, primary productivity and food chains. Absolutely correct. अब second वाला कहता है melting of giant icebergs can produce climate change effects and impact world fisheries. Right. Melting of icebergs can produce climate change effects. अब here you look at, these are the giant icebergs, and these researchers discovered that melting water from giant iceberg which contain iron and other nutrients supports high. Okay. So and this is also given that ocean surface found that giant icebergs responsible for storing up to 20% of carbon in the southern ocean. So when they melt, of course this stored up carbon will be released, will be unleashed, which is going to have some devastating effects. लेकिन मैंने जब ये पैसेज डिस्कस किया था 24 में, तो उस समय मेरे को ये था कि सदर्न ओशन की बात हो रही है, रीजन स्पेसिफिक है. तो वी कैन, आई वाज डाउटफुल अबाउट द सेकंड स्टेटमेंट कि इट टॉक्स अबाउट द वर्ल्ड फिशरीज आल्सो. आई वाज ऑफ दिस व्यू कि मे बी और मे नॉट बी, क्योंकि वर्ल्ड फिशरीज के लिए तो डेटा हमारे पास वर्ल्ड मींस इट हैज, बट यूपीएससी's ऑफिशियल आंसर एक्सेप्ट्स दिस आल्सो. It is, it's my duty to tell you the facts as they are. So this was, I was also not of this way. तो it may happen कि कहीं कहीं पे कुछ subjectivity होगी. ठीक है? Yes? है? बिल्कुल. अब वहां पे फिर अब जीएस नॉलेज लगा दिया कि पूरी की जब ये सदर्न ओशन तो वर्ल्ड फिशरीज वो धीरे धीरे एक्सपैंड प्रोपगेट करेगा, which is of course related, things are interrelated, but then the question becomes कि हमें कहाँ पे लिमिट रखनी है. I mean, to which extent we can think. So I would reiterate my line, when you read, look at the region, place, person जिसकी बात हो रही है, and always evaluate the given statements on that basis. एक जगह पे ऐसा हुआ है कि उनका ये आंसर है सेकंड में, बट वो खुद ही एक दो जगह पर ऐसा नहीं किया उन्होंने एक्सेप्ट. इन सम ऑफ द अदर पेपर्स दे डिड नॉट एक्सेप्ट एंड व्हिच वाज मेकिंग सेंस. सो दिस वाज टू बी वाज क्वेश्चनेबल, बट एनीवे दे आर बोथ. डोंट वरी. देखो व्हेन वी यू मेक, अब नाउ आई वुड आई हैव कंप्लेन अगेंस्ट यू. कंप्लेन किस बात की है? देखो जब व्हेन वी हैव अ थिंग कि जब हमें पता है कि ये सारा ऐसे करना है हमको काम, और उसमें देयर इज अ फ्रैक्शन ऑफ द थिंग्स वेयर वी नो कि दिस टेरेन, दिस रीजन इज आल्सो टफ, वी डोंट नो, वी कांट डू एनीथिंग. तो शुड वी वरी अबाउट दिस और शुड वी वरी अबाउट दिस? आप अपना स्ट्रेटजी बनाओ, बेसिक क्लियर रखो, प्रैक्टिस करो. भाई एक दो जगह होता है, मुझे क्या करना, आई विल स्किप दैट. इफ आई हैव दिस कॉन्फ्लिक्ट ड्यूरिंग द पेपर, आई विल स्किप दैट. मतलब वही नाउ वी नो दैट, देखो कि प्रॉब्लम कहाँ आती है, प्रॉब्लम आती है कि जो यूपीएससी डज नॉट गिव एक्सप्लेनेशन, that is the problem ki they don't if they give the explanation the student will understand ki acha why this answer is correct. So I would say generally I don't tell the students it in the first class, otherwise wo beginning mein hi shock ho jaye ki ye kya, lots of there are the biggest chunk you can solve on the case basics, on the basis of the basic, and then with the clarity of the language wahan pe koi issue nahi hoga. So we had in today's class, like you have this I discussed with you, and you have that one urban planning. I'll get back to that passage. आप दो के बारे में वरी क्यों हो रहे हो, आप 25 देखो जो आप कर ले रहे हैं, 24-25. Always skip 2-3 questions of this nature where you are 50-50. Don't take risk unnecessarily. 100% sure. Yes, obviously. I explained that to my classes. We can't choose because world fisheries is being said, and how can we connect with the world fisheries? It may be or may not be. I distinctly remember, and then I was also a bit shocked. And the shock is not just here. Shock was there in 1 or 2 paper questions of 2021 also. No, you're jumping the guns. I would say the assumption यहाँ का tough नहीं था. 23 was dear very simple in fact in a way. थोड़ा सा level था. चलिए. So we move to the next. So Pallavi, in short, when you are stuck up in the exam and doubtful between the two options, and if in case you are doing fairly good, dear, don't take risk, leave it. But there is no hard and fast rule. The exam is qualifying. You have to clear this exam, and आपको focus करना है मेरा काम कैसे निकलना है. Rather than getting into this, I will solve all 100% RC questions. So 100% there is no need. Out of 27, if you are getting 22, 23 correct, fairly good. Suppose you are hell-bent कि नहीं मुझे सारे करने, तो आपने 3-4 गलत कर दिए उस केस पे. And if you 3-4 are wrong, 4 multiplied by 0.83, you are going to lose 3.5 marks unnecessarily. So you have to be playing both way. You have to you should not take unnecessary risk at all, so that your score is not affected. Having said that, I would say it's a previous assumption question, and that rock wala question में अब now you should not get confused कि सर यहाँ भी doubt है और वहाँ भी doubt है. वो basic पे base था. That was based because exclaim word was written with the scientist, तो suggestion में वो आना था. ठीक है ना बेटा, तो वो आना था. लेकिन ये वाला question जो है ये बड़ा ओपन था, मल्टीपल स्टेटमेंट और वर्ल्ड फिशरीज जाके बहुत जनरलाइज किया, तो इसलिए थोड़ा इसको ध्यान रखेंगे कि अननेसेसरी न ले. Evolution has endowed caterpillars. This passage. The first question is about practical message conveyed by the passage. You there? Now, अब देखो this word with a unique ability. अब you are reading. किस तरह के plant पे ये मिला? Evolution has endowed caterpillars that feed on corn with unique ability. So on my mind I know about this particular plant. जहाँ पे ये notice किया गया, they can induce the plant to turn off its defense against insect predators. कुछ ऐसा उनका होता है कि वो plant does not get to know कि we are being attacked by some predator. They induce something. This helps caterpillars to eat more and grow faster because the defensive mechanism of the plant is not in place, because the plant does not realize it is being eaten or attacked. The agent that, अब यहां से मतलब है कि आपको ऑथर ऐसे अंदर लेके जा रहा है जो स्पेसिफिक मुद्दा है उसकी तरफ. Agent that causes this effect is the caterpillar's feces or frass. तो ये उसके feces में मिलता है वो particular agent जिसने induce कर दिया. The find could throw new light on. Now, this statement is forward looking. The find could throw new light on compounds associated with plant response to pathogens like fungi or bacteria. So it can help. This find can help. So it means that our message should be related to this part. Just like in the previous question, scientists exclaimed this, so suggestion should be related to that word. तो कौन सा ऑप्शन इस डायरेक्शन में मैच कर रहा है आपको बस ये देखना है. अब फेसीज के बेस पे दिया इसलिए ऑर्गेनिक वाला ऑप्शन बेटर होगा. It means something is there in their feces, which is a very organic thing. तो इसलिए better option is C. इस ऑप्शन में this finding can help in the development of clinically useful antimicrobial compounds. अब clinically में थोड़ा सा compound chemical का एक touch रहता है, but organic is more related to on the basis of feces we can connect. So that is more related. So C is the better option. Caterpillars can be genetically modified to be predators of the other plant aphids. No. Other plants have not been discussed. Only this study is the topic, so we cannot jump to other. Next passage is about crux. Robust demoxylated howsoever inconvenient. Got the passage? Crux का आंसर बताइए. Media should not distort the real in ideal. Real has been emphasized in the passage. The passage has emphasized the reality. Reality should not be distorted. Look at reality. So that was one question. Next is a simple passage. Nowadays there is a growing trend to use interconnected home devices. So through this interconnected home devices, the author is talking about the vulnerability of the house owners. क्या मैसेज है इसमें? Option D. Interconnected devices can be at risk, security risk, and home users may have privacy risk. And this directly comes from this part of the passage, this second column. How their data can be used, profit margin by gathering more of our personal data without our agreement, turning the home into a corporate state front. Corporate marketers will have powerful incentives to observe consumer behavior to understand. All this lead to privacy part. D, right answer. Next passage, green growth involves rethinking growth strategies with regard to the impacts of environmental sustainability. Common passage, moderate level, question hai crux, which option class? Maintaining high environmental standards is now a prerequisite for achieving a steady, sufficient and inclusive growth. Other options are incomplete or out of the scope. Anyone doubtful? I think this was the last. एक और है अभी. There are two. A good passage. Abstract topic. So always look at the topic of the passage and then decide whether you are going to do it or not. I'm talking about the exam hall, mock test. Classroom mein, you have to practice all type of questions so that you have exposure. Yes? If something is abstract, abstract means something which does not have a physical existence. तो वो थोड़ा सा ज़्यादातर philosophical चीज़ें ही उसमें चला जाता है territory. Religion and science and how poetry is different. Then it talks about the specific details of poetry, the nature of poetry. So what is the message conveyed here? The correct answer of UPSC is D. In a world of violence, tyranny and bigotry, poetry is a form of dynamic resistance. देखो सी तो बिल्कुल बेटर नहीं होगा, वीक ऑप्शन है. अगर आप ए कहते हो तो कुछ क्लोज था वो. पोइट्री इज रोमांटिक, इमेजिनरी एंड इज अबाउट फीलिंग, वेयर एज साइंस एंड रिलीजन आर अबाउट ट्रूथ. ठीक है, पोइट्री इज रोमांटिक, इमेजिनरी एंड अबाउट फीलिंग. इट्स रोमांटिसिज्म एंड इमेजिनेशन से ज्यादा इस पे फोकस किया गया. तो पोइट्री accepts the reality. Author is more talking about the reality part that poetry accepts, and the truth and religion they overlook. They look for the truth only. I mean, they look for the facts. Yes? So you got it? Why the option C is wrong? Right? The C is focusing on the secondary part. And option B, अब मैं दोनों discuss कर लेता हूँ. Truth is revealed through science or religion, and poetry is anathema to truth. Anathema is something which is very strongly against something. But author is not saying that poetry is strongly against the truth. Author is simply saying that poetry does not necessarily represent the truth. Poetry accepts the other realities also. So that's why this B option and C options were weak options. A, it is the poetry, not science or religion, which recognizes and accepts imperfections in humans. It comes from the passage, right? It is also, it does not have any, like here the underlined part, here the underlined part, they are against, they are out of the passage. But this part is given in the passage. But question आपको पूछा कि सबसे most logical and rational message बताइए, right? So it means that you have to take away, just focus on the takeaway of this passage. And option A is the better summary of this passage. Is the better summarized part of the passage, which covers the different element. Message is what is the takeaway from the passage. A and D are close, but option A is more covering the entire passage as it is, and D is only focusing on the message. Next passage, last passage, the flower was not invented to please us. It flaunted its petals and spread its perfume to attract an insect. The insect carries the pollen, okay, fine. Carried away by wind and thus not wasted. What we call a flower's beauty is merely byproduct and a human invention. And the perfume is not there to please us, it pleases us because it is there and we have been conditioned to it. It means, the author is talking about the nature, that in the nature he has taken the example of flower, that it is not there just to please us. It is our own understanding or our own conditioning that we are connected with. However, it is doing a particular mechanized job that it has been assigned by the nature. है ना? तो अब मजनू को मिल गया फ्लावर तो वो समझ रहा है ये इसके लिए और इसके लिए, वो कह रहा है वो ये सब के लिए नहीं है, वो तो बस एक पर्टिकुलर रोल प्ले कर रहा है इन दिस होल प्रोसेस. सो अजम्पशन ऑथर की थॉट से मैच करना चाहिए, इसलिए ये पैसेज. Author of the passage believe that flowers are creations of nature's luxury. No, they are doing a certain job, not for luxury. Luxury is what we have created. तो आपकी थॉट से कॉन्ट्राडिक्ट कर रहा है. ऑथर ऑफ द पैसेज डज नॉट बिलीव इन द यूजफुलनेस ऑफ फ्लावर्स एक्सेप्ट एज थिंग्स ऑफ ब्यूटी. इट इज जस्ट कॉन्ट्राडिक्टिंग द ऑथर थॉट. तो दोनों इनकरेक्ट assumptions हैं. D. So that was your paper 2024. I took अनाथमा का मतलब होता है अनाथमा ना, anachronistic. अच्छा, you see, Rajat, the word is chron basically. The basic word, Latin word comes from is, which means time. तो जितने वर्ड बनते हैं, chronology, chronicle, chronic, anachronistic, they all based on time. So anachronistic is something which does not belong to the present time. It gives you a feeling. If something is anachronistic, it gives you a feeling, a sense that it belongs to some other part of the time. जैसे अब आज के टाइम पे you look all youngsters, they look same, whether it's Pune or Delhi or Bengaluru or Bhopal. Yes. अचानक आपको एक यंग आपकी एज का बंदा दिखता है वो आरएन में, and he is wearing a very traditional dress. Day to day life, धोती पहने हुए, कुर्ता पहने, जो 50 years ago people used to wear. This sight will give you an anachronistic feeling, है ना? तो ये anachronistic जो चीज कोई पहले कोई और टाइम के उससे कनेक्ट हो रहा था. पेपर 2024 27 क्वेश्चंस में you were supposed to get 23-24 correct. They were all very direct, very clear. There was no confusion or no part of subjectivity. 23-24 questions could have been, दो सही नहीं हुए. एक तो सिटी प्लानिंग, एक सिटी प्लानिंग वाला. We'll summarize because 25 में भी कुछ ऐसा होगा, तो अभी we will summarize this thing. तो पेपर 2025 is left. So So one takeaway from this, number one, that make it clear that you are not going to solve all the questions. There is no such need. Even if you bank upon RC section, so let's say comparatively you are weak in maths, still you should make a name that 90% questions you should solve. 1 or 2, 3 questions you can always skip, so that your score is good, not affected. There would be no point that a student on one hand is scoring, on the other hand he is going for in a daredevil approach and losing marks from that, from that reserve. So dear, now 2025 का question discuss करते हैं. And one more takeaway from this 24th discussion was, while reading the passage, be mindful of the particular area, person, thing that is being discussed. Better while reading underline it. ठीक है ना? तो जैसे बेसाल्ट रॉक आया, जैसे सदर्न ओशन आया, जैसे आपका कोई इस तरह का और बात बोला, तो आपको उस पर फोकस है. उसने कहा फूड प्लांट, सो फूड मस्ट बी अंडरस्टूड. इट्स नॉट any other plant, just food plant the passage is talking about. So let's go to 25. ये hard copy में है, everybody has in the booklet. Very good. 23, 24 is a good score. D Delhi, Janvi, for the passage D Delhi was the right answer. Achha, before I move to 25, there is an announcement. There is an open workshop on GS strategy on 18th August at 5 p.m. So here we have on 18th August at 5 p.m. open seminar, open workshop on GS strategy. And since it's the last class, so you know that from next class onwards you have Amit sir's classes. 20 score है, ठीक है, but ये dear कुछ you should have scored 1 or 2 more questions. So you should look at कि किस part पे miss हो रहा है. Let's go to 25 because आपको strategy भी discuss करना है मुझे आज की क्लास में. थोड़ा सा जल्दी करेंगे. देखिए the first passage in this, there were 29 question asked in 2025 paper. 29 question. तो 2 और क्वेश्चन बढ़ा दिए यूपीएससी ने. पिछले 4 सालों से 27 क्वेश्चंस were asked from 21 to 2024. They were asking 27 and here we have 29 questions. पहला क्वेश्चन देखिए, for maintaining an ecosystem just to conserve biodiversity will affect its commercial pilot. It's a very balanced passage. The author is using that just maintaining an ecosystem for conservation, purely for conservation, not good because it will affect the livelihood. And on the other hand, not maintaining an ecosystem and just using it for a commercial exploitation will also be harmful. So both are harmful ways. अभी आपसे कहता है चूज करिए इसका क्रक्स, critical message. Which option class? See, sustenance of livelihood and degradation of ecosystem while being together exacerbate one another, leading to conflicts and imbalance. Absolutely correct. Other options are quite weak. Want me to explain anything? Online students, 25 being discussed. In case of doubt, immediately you should mention. But this question was a simple question because of the weak options given here. Second question इसी पे बेस देखिए. Assumption. No country needs to depend on ecosystem to boost national income. Author is not talking about that no country needs to depend on ecosystem. It's talking a fine balance should be maintained. Wrong. Resource-rich countries need to share the resources with those of scant resources so as to prevent. देखिए बात सुनने में अच्छी लगे, इससे कोई मतलब नहीं. Passage should have the indirect support for that. So there is no data for this also. Answer is D. Both correct. Passage 2. History of renewable energy suggests there is a steep learning curve. Each student must be aware of this kind of phrases. Steep learning curve, economies of scale, learning by doing, ये सब बहुत commonly used words. Give me a minute. Lavi, I will take up your question, but I would urge you to wait because it is the doubts. It is the individual doubt is specific, so better to be dealt with post the discussion of paper 2025. Right? I'll surely come back to this. In case you feel that I am forgetting it, so you can remind me. Guys, so this question. जल्दी देखिए दो क्वेश्चन इस पे भी बेस्ड है फर्स्ट क्वेश्चन इज दैट बेस्ट रिफ्लेक्ट्स द सेंट्रल आइडिया दैट कोर पॉइंट on which the author has spoken so much here, but the main point here, economies of scale is essential for transition to green growth. If something is essential, it means without that thing the other thing is not possible. So you notice the extreme version it gives out. Modern technological progress is intensely linked to part dependent innovation. Sounds good, UPSC has worked on it. See, countries with large economies are in a better position. Nowhere author has told कि countries with large economies better placed, or please don't apply your GS knowledge here. And C is weak option. Timing plays a crucial role in the case of green technology development. Two close options we have come across. What I have told you when you we have the case of two close options. Therefore, two close options. Number one, word to word. Go word to word reading. With this intention कि कुछ गैप हो जाएगा क्रिएट. तो वर्ड टू वर्ड रीडिंग करिए केयरफुली, आई स्पैन को स्लो करके. ठीक, दोनों अच्छे हैं, दोनों सेंस बना रहे हैं, लेकिन आपको पूछा है सेंट्रल आइडिया ऑफ द पैसेज. तो आई टोल्ड यू दैट सेकंड आल्सो कीप ऑन योर माइंड व्हाट इज द क्वेश्चन. So whether this option or this option is specific answer to the given question, तो यह दोनों तो सेंस तो बना रहे हैं डियर. लेकिन आप देखो जब ये बात करता है मॉडर्न टेक्नोलॉजी ग्रीन रिवोल्यूशन की, और ये कहता है मॉडर्न टेक्नोलॉजिकल प्रोग्रेस इज इंटेंसली लिंक्ड टू पार्ट डिपेंडेंट. नो डाउट पार्ट डिपेंडेंट इज मेंशन देयर. Author says कि the firm's green innovation is path dependent. And what is path independent? Path dependent is explained here after the colon. Path dependent का मतलब है जितना ज्यादा काम किया उतना धीरे धीरे. लेकिन author towards the end part talks about the timing, and he says moving early and gradually gives economies more time to adjust. Early and gradually, allowing them to reap the benefits. It means things depends on timing, right? And more to adjust, allowing them to reap the benefits. Path dependent green investment without much disruption. A late, more chaotic transition is costlier, right? So crux central idea demands कि that particular point on which the passage depends. Modern technological progress, no doubt green revolution उसका एक subset है, but modern technological progress is a bit scopy, baggy, इसलिए आपका better option ये D. Timing is crucial. This is the central idea. D. फिर अगला क्वेश्चन assumption है path dependent green investments will eventually most likely benefit growth as well as public finances in a country like India. Yes, correct. He has given the example of solar energy. Solar energy actually is a good example for that. Path dependent green investment will eventually most likely benefit. And I would also ask you to notice that the safe expression he has used here and he has used here. I'm not saying that wherever most likely appears, you should just jump the gun that it is the answer. I'm saying that in the whole context, if you look at the author, both his statements are valid assumptions, and they connect and support the passage. Yes, please. I'm coming to that. What is public finance? Finances available to the government, right? Now, says the path dependent green investments will eventually most likely benefit growth as well as public finances in a country like India. In this part, he says the strongest evidence for this, the collapse in the price of solar energy, which became about cheaper during the 2010s, repeatedly beating forecasts. And this example he has used as an example for path dependent. The more a firm does, the more is likely to do in the future. Solar energy, one example, that every time it beats its forecast and became more cheaper, right? More cheaper, how it became? So it means the finances have been involved in that. Yani the government support, and that has played a role in it. So he is saying that is because we started doing early part dependent, the more firm does, the more is likely to do in the future. So that's why it talks about the timing. अब ये question में part independent investment will eventually most likely benefit growth. As solar energy, you can see 90% cheaper it has become, and as well as public finances in a country like India. If there other green technology follow the same pattern as that of solar energy, there will most likely be an easy green transition. Matches as an assumption with the author's thought because he has cited the example of solar energy. So part dependent if they become, the more they do and gradually they start, certainly they will get the same success. So both assumptions should be valid. When you look at this part, see देखो ये collapse in the price of solar energy, which became about 90% cheaper. He's talking about the solar energy. So I would say that here you can use this knowledge of yours that solar energy became cheaper. Author is saying 90% cheaper during the 2000, repeatedly beating forecasts. So in terms of growth and in terms of how this energy was made cheaper. Solar energy, it means those equipments that people are supposed to purchase, which were costlier earlier, became cheaper, and every time they became cheaper. It means they were provided at a certain cost, at a certain price. So the public finances is the finances that is there from the government for the public, hence the government. So it means that it has played some role there. Public finances has been intact. And and the knowledge of the solar energy can be used there. And we know that solar energy in India was, facilitated by the government. So that's why this, and उसके ऊपर ये बोल रहा है कि most likely it is supposed to help. तो इसलिए आप ये ऑप्शन, ऐसे ऑप्शंस को कंसीडर कर सकते हो. और अगर आपको फिर भी लग रहा है during while writing the exam, if this option is not giving you some risky proposition, you can put it on hold and come back to after the paper. Yeah, I will discuss this in the strategy also, because there are various eventualities in a paper. Various conditions you can come across. The paper may be medium level, may be very high level. So we have to be ready for all kind of things. So let me just put it now on the back burner. During the discussion for strategy, I will come to these questions. तो आपको फर्स्ट पार्ट में कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं, सेकंड में देयर वाज नो प्रॉब्लम, इट इज इन द पब्लिक फाइनेंसेस यू हैड सम इश्यूज. थर्ड passage, each state in India faces a distinctive set of challenges. Very good passage. What is the pragmatic message? Mitigation adoption strategy to address tackle the climate change is essentially the responsibility of each state. Too diverse to implement any effective strategy to promote address or tackle climate. Too diverse to promote, author is contradicting the author. Basically, the responsibility of the union government to implement responsibility, it is not given. D is the answer. Formulate effective climate change mitigation and adaptation strategies at the state and region level. This seems to be the message, because he has told here different areas, different states and different type of problems and opportunities they provide. तो इसमें तो सभी का आंसर डी. अब आ गया assumption का question. Green energy production can be linked to integrated with the climate change mitigation and adaptation strategies. Up now question is that where we have got green energy production, and so we have wind energy mentioned in the passage. While talking about this opportunity, author has mentioned read this part. Selected parts of peninsular India and offshore areas offer great opportunities for harnessing wind power. So our green energy is present here. So it can be linked with climate change mitigation and adaptation strategies. Author has spoken about the risk and as well as the opportunities that they create. First is valid. Second, effects of climate change are much more severe in coastal and mountainous region. Much more severe, it means a comparison is being done. You don't have data. Though the author in the passage has discussed coastal and peninsular area, mountainous areas. But in terms of severity, he has not gone for any kind of comparison. So it may be correct, but we don't have direct data. So that's why first only. और ये देखो थोड़ा सा एग्जामिनर कई बार कुछ दे लीव सम क्लूज फॉर यू. सिर्फ मोर सीवियर नहीं बोला, अब मच मोर सीवियर भी कह रहा है. So you look at the degree also. You don't have the full support for this. Option A. Next passage. If social inequality Janvi, I'll take your doubt. Isha, I have just discussed green energy and the wind energy is mentioned here, so there is connection. It is asking you to make your own assumption about India, right? Eventually most likely benefit growth as well as public finances in a country like India. It's not saying just in India, but in a country like India, it means you can consider this given scenario and then apply it here. चलिए next question देख passage we come to question number 7. Social inequality is the most acutely felt social problem in India. Insecurity more than poverty is the most acutely felt economic problem. Passage is a comparison of two things. Comparison format है. अब आपका critical message passage का. So option D, insecurity more than poverty is the main economic issue that government policies must address. Very specific. Poverty and social inequality are so intricately linked that they pose an unmanageable crisis. अब ये देखो इसका आपके पास data नहीं है, unmanageable है. In India, poverty is the primary reason for social inequality and insecurity. Author's passage is revolving around insecurity rather than poverty. So B is not representing the main point. And India's political executive should be aware that poverty and social inequality and the consequent sense of insecurity is the main social problem. Awareness of the Indian political executive is not the message of the author. He has discussed the fact of matter. And moreover, poverty is an economic insecurity is not mentioned here. Economic insecurity author has linked with poverty. एंड ऑथर ऑप्शन सेज सोशल इनइक्वालिटी से भी लिंक कर रहा है इनसिक्योरिटी को, विच इज अगेन डिस्टॉर्शन. So your answer is D. Question number 8, assumption. People above the poverty line also are prone to suffer from anxiety about economic insecurity. Absolutely correct. There is no doubt. He's mentioned that. Second, eradication of poverty can result in peace and social equality in the country. Eradication of poverty can result in peace and social equality in the country. Now, result in peace and social equality. How can we connect it with the social equality? We don't have data for this. He's talking two things: economic insecurity and social inequality. Last sentence, many government policies are actually intended towards mitigating these insecurities. These economic insecurities he's talking about, that they are trying to deal with. But solving this problem will also remove social inequality, we cannot say. Here by social inequality, he wants to talk about the caste system, the other system that we have. And here, when he highlights the economic insecurity, he's talking about the economic insecurity. So by solving the economic insecurity, it will also sort out the social equality problem, cannot be established from the passage. तो इसलिए आपका सेकेंड वाला तो नहीं, आपको फर्स्ट चूज करना. अब दिस assumption question is comparatively easy, right? तो आपको इसका मतलब है कि when you are solving assumption question, you will have to give it a try. So what kind of this assumption is? अगर आपको लगता है हाँ it is within my range, don't leave it. The moment you find it leaves you on tenterhooks, maybe. Yes. Should be about poverty and social equality, and the consequent sense of insecurity is the main social problem. बट ये नहीं कह रहा है कि ये मेन सोशल प्रॉब्लम्स है, ये पैसेज में नहीं कह रहा है, ऑथर इज नॉट सेइंग दैट. एंड सिंस वी आर टेकिंग आउट द फ्रॉम द पैसेज, तो ही हैज डिस्कस्ड टू थिंग्स सेपरेटली, दोनों को अलग अलग डिस्कस किया कि वी ऑलरेडी नो सोशल इक्वालिटी इज द मोस्ट एक्यूटली फेल्ट सोशल प्रॉब्लम इन इंडिया, ये तो पहले से पता है, ठीक है, इज द मोस्ट एक्यूटली प्रॉब्लम. इनसिक्योरिटी मोर देन पॉवर्टी इज द मोस्ट एक्यूटली फेल्ट इकोनॉमिक प्रॉब्लम. Then he only talks about the economic problem. इसका मतलब ये जो पार्ट है डियर, ये सिर्फ एक जनरलाइजेशन है, स्पेसिफिक पॉइंट ये है इकोनॉमिक प्रॉब्लम, एंड दिस इकोनॉमिक प्रॉब्लम इज डिस्कस्ड थ्रू आउट. ऑप्शन में क्या करता है, he connects it कि it is both are the social problems, but author is not doing any kind of linkage between the two. His point is only to talk about the insecurity as a serious problem, like more serious than poverty. तो पैसेज का मेन टॉपिक था हाउ इनसिक्योरिटी इज मोर सीरियस प्रॉब्लम देन पॉवर्टी. Passage 5, one of the dismal realities of agriculture in independent India has been it never experienced a high growth phase. The first question is corollary. Corollary में आपको पता है what the passage author is trying to prove or establish. Based on that, which option is the natural consequence, logical consequence of that. क्या option choose करें class? A? कोई doubt? So online students, directly relates with the theory there. Percolates means something which trickles down, goes down slowly, gradually, more slowly on the agriculture than in other sectors. Throughout it has been established. Is the valid corollary. अब इसका second question assumption है. अब look, he has already made an external case. This is a very uncommon type of assumption question. If first he gives you a context here, इस context में आप सोच करके फिर आप बताओ. The growing divergence between the fortunes of the agricultural and non-agricultural economy in India could have been reduced by this. कैसे reduce कर सकते थे non-agricultural and agricultural income को, economy को? So Adapting large-scale cultivation of commercial crops and viable corporate farming. Viable corporate farming. अब इस corporate farming के बारे में अभी आपको कुछ पैसेज में नहीं बताया गया. How does it work? What is the detail of this? So whether the corporate farming will be viable, good, beneficial or not, we don't know. Providing free insurance for all crops and heavily subsidizing seeds, fertilizers, electricity and farm machinery at par with the developed countries. At par with the developed countries, and equal to developed countries. Countries have specific issues. One solution working in a particular country, in a developed country, may not work here because of the different political and social and economic and environmental issues we have here, right? It is only that the success of one policy or a step opens a window for us to study whether it will work here or not. But blindly we can't jump that it will, since it was successful in America, so it will be successful here. So though he has written a very wider option, wider का मतलब है बहुत ज़्यादा चीज़ें बढ़ दी हैं इसमें, लेकिन I still feel कि you don't have the data to conclude that both will work in India. So that's why this D, neither one nor two. Next question is very interesting. In our handloom industry, it talks about are equated with a culture that ensures continuity of tradition. Most logical rational message. तो एक main idea based question है first वाला. We need to free the handloom industry from the limited narrative linked to preserving cultural heritage. Continued state support to handloom industry ensures the preservation of some of our glorious art forms. No. B is weak. Household units of handloom sector should be modernized and made an economically viable organized industry. Sounds very good, but it is not the author's main point. It does not convey the author's message. Message differs. Handloom products need to be converted to machine-made designer products so as to make them more. No, he's rather giving an idea which is represented here. We need to free the handloom industry from the limited narrative linked to preserving cultural heritage. That just preservation of handloom industry because it is cultural, it is traditional, is not sufficient. And he says that's the reason that many people, that this thing does not appeal to many people. So his point is that the premise of the base should be something else, not just this narrative. Correct हुआ सभी का? Anybody missed? कोई doubt online students? For question number 11. Up second question इसका 12 is an assumption. There is no need for the state to be involved in any manner in the handloom sector. We don't have any data and it sounds very extreme. Handloom products are no longer appealing and attractive in the rapidly changing modern world. Passage is talking about the handloom industry itself, not about its products. So it is talking about a certain understanding of the handloom and industry. So we don't have any data for this. D should be the answer. That's a moderate type of assumption question. Correct हुआ? Yes. It's no longer appealing and attractive in the rapidly changing modern world. This is coming from outside. True, maybe true on the other side. When you study about the handloom industry, you come to know this. Okay, why are they losing the market? But passage में इसका data आपके पास है. Product पे. Passage is only about a perception of handloom industry, not the product. अब आइए passage next वाला. In our country, regrettably, teaching and learning for the examination have been our forte. What is our forte? Strong area, bastion. A word list में आपको मिलेगा ये. तो just by asking, I want you to remind that please, you can't afford to be ignorant to this word list. Critical independent thinking. चलिए बड़ा अच्छा पैसेज था. एजुकेशन पे आजकल काफी आ रहा है पैसेजेस. The first question is that central idea. It is the very core. Which option, class? B, Bombay? D, Delhi? Yes? आपका आंसर? B. The institution of higher learning in the country should not be under the control of the government. It is not talking about whose control it should be. It's just talking about that how the higher education should be more inclined to promote thinking rather than rote learning and scoring in exams. तो ये पैसेज तो आपके हार्ट के बहुत करीब होगा ना, ये पैसेज पढ़ते ही आपको लगता है हाँ ये तो यस मेकिंग सेंस. तो इन पैसेज में आपको you do not need to make any effort to comprehend it because you already know much more about it. It is one of those fundamental loopholes of education system. तो इसमें डाउट नहीं होना चाहिए था ना बेटा. Classroom approach to higher education should be done away with. No, classroom needs to be reimagined and teaching needs to be. अब C क्यों wrong हुआ? Classroom approach to higher education should be done away with. But it is a very touch and go type of option. इस फॉर्म में ये डन अवे हो जाना चाहिए, है ना? वो फॉर्म यहाँ है, टीचिंग नीड्स टू बी रीइमेजिन्ड, अलग से होना चाहिए. So D is the best option. I have come to know that CBSE has decided to make 9th standard onwards open book exam, which is not based on just rote learning but more on concept building. And the student can carry his book to the exam hall, can look for data and figure, which makes sense. Those who have concept clarity, they can solve. तो एक उसी दिशा में कदम है, अच्छा कदम है. So, and they are planning to, or maybe it is still under the consideration, planning to implement it from 26-27 session onwards. Assumption बताना. Higher education is constantly evolving subject that needs to align towards new developments in all spheres of society. अब this as an assumption, constantly evolving subject, yes, because the author has mentioned कि ये ट्रेडिशनल वे में नहीं हो सकता. Look at this part. It cannot be a mere servant of the government policy or a passive respondent to public mood. It should change, right? It has to be reinvented. So we find that the thought propagated in first statement aligns with the author's passage. Valid assumption. In our country, sufficient funds are not allocated for promoting higher. Nothing about funds is given. Simple answer था. तो अभी तक 25 में कोई ऐसा assumption आपको strike नहीं किया. No assumption question you have encountered which puts you on a crossroad. We must keep a count on this figure, है ना रजत? क्योंकि ये पता होना चाहिए कि इस पेपर में हमारा कौन सा क्वेश्चन था, कितने थे और वो नंबर क्या है. If the number exceeds a certain limit, then there is a concern. Shall I address this? If there is inequality in the pattern of population growth, there is greater inequality in food production and utilization. And then he goes into the detail. Passage का पहला क्वेश्चन आपको वही crux. Yes, which option? A? B. Somebody said A also? B. Everyone on the same page? B? B कहता है animal based food is far less efficient than grain or plant based food in terms of production and utilization. अब मुझे बताओ why C is wrong? क्योंकि आप देखो नहीं, प्रोटीन पे इसी फोकस कर गया बस. Generally food is being discussed, but protein is one component of it. अब वो carbs की बात करने लगता कुछ और. So we should be watchful of this. It's a general thing that is being discussed. Anyway, B is the answer. Nobody doubtful. So question 16 now. Assumption बताइए. Food manufacturing processing industry in every country should align their objectives and processes in accordance with the changing needs of the societies. And wealthier societies tend to incur great loss of calories of food materials due to indirect utilization. This is a very simple assumption. Wealthier societies में बता दिया गया protein based food. So second directly follows. First is dicey. Rather, and it's very wider in sense, coverage is saying every country should align, and this industries talks about objectives and process in accordance with the changing needs of the society. And instead of changing needs, the author is talking about this, that how the society itself is eating wrong food, wealthy society, more animal based protein, and how it is harmful. So your answer should have been B. So initially it hits me, first one, ki shayad ye, but then it is wider and out of scope, thoda sa ja raha hai. Question number 9, over next 30 years, many countries are promising to move to net zero carbon, implying that household emissions will have to be cut to close to nothing. Close to nothing matlab towards zero. Is one of the expression to say moving to zero. Now question is central idea, question number 17. क्या आंसर किया dear? D? B. Low carbon behavior in people can be brought about by incentivizing them. Yes. And this shows here that would require companies and governments to provide more incentives to change the through supply side investment to make low carbon cheaper and more widely available. Then people will go for this. Any other option? Abhay? D. Manufacturing industries that use low carbon technology should be provided with subsidies. Abhay, it is this passage is this option is talking about manufacturing industries, right? But the passage in is very general one. Yani whether it is give me a second. Leading climate scientists reckon that at best half the reduction might be achieved. Demand side. My point is that this option, this passage, first word, manufacturing industries. So it has become very specific to an industry. The passage is talking in general way. It is not industry specific. So that's why ये वैसे तो जो बात कह रहा है that is making some sense, but this word makes it secondary. So B is the better answer for passage 9. Question number 18, again assumption. Supply side investments in companies can result in low carbon behavior in people. Yes. The last part you read and it directly, it is a supporting argument for that. It must be true for that part to be true. People are not capable of adopting low carbon behavior without the involvement of government and companies. Now they are not capable of, though author is saying that incentives, they should be provided to, cheaper goods needs to be made available. But whether people are not capable of, is a, just a kind of exaggerated claim. We don't have sufficient data for this. So without involvement, the people are not capable. They're not doing, that's one thing, but not capable of is another thing. So आपको option सिर्फ one choose करना चाहिए. तो अगर इस expression को सही करना हो तो आप ये कर सकते हैं. The people tend to, are well prone to, open to, this kind of expression is take, but not capable of means not able to do that. Next passage, only 50 years the world's consumption of raw materials has increased nearly quadrupled to more than 100 billion. Okay. This passage talks about the recycling. अब इसका practical pragmatic message, question number 19. Which option class? Circular economy can be beneficial for sustainable growth? Yes, absolutely. No doubts? Abhay, what is the answer for next question, 20th? As आपका यहाँ फिर assumption? यूपी से खूब practice दे रहा है आपको assumption की. If you solve 10 questions, there may be 1 or 2 that should give you doubt. इसका उससे ज़्यादा degree नहीं बढ़ना चाहिए. चलिए इसमें assumption question में quite simple. Automobile factories are examples of the circular economy. अब how do we know? अगर ये मेंशन करता कि ऑटोमोबाइल फैक्ट्रीज फॉलो रिसाइकलिंग प्रोसेस कॉमनली, तो ये फर्स्ट के लिए आपके पास डेटा नहीं. कॉन्ट्रडिक्ट कर रहा है. Supply chains are long and complicated. Being able to buy the supplies poor environmental. Yes. Right. So there the recycling itself is the solution as the author has suggested. So वह example of तो सही नहीं है. Economic growth is compatible with the circular use of mineral resources. Absolutely correct. Economic growth is compatible with the circular use of mineral resources. Yes, author is talking about recycling, circular use. So obviously this thought aligns with this passage. B should be the answer. Passage 11, question number 21. Hard to predict how changes in the climate and the atmosphere's chemistry will affect the prevalence and virulence of agricultural diseases. Prevalence, everybody know, dissemination is spread, and virulence means intensity. Kitna तीव्र होगा, intense होगा. But there's a risk that such changes will make some plant infections more common in all climatic zones, perhaps catastrophically so. Part of the problem is that centuries of selective breeding have refined the genomes. अच्छा वही अपने old topic पे आ गया कि how this this selective breeding has made them, though they increase the production, but they have made them vulnerable. They are unable to fight against diseases. तो अब question आपका central idea, which option? इसमें भी एक ही option होगा जो correct होगा आपका, and I think quite simple to get to that. See, आप सी कह रहे हो, our food security should not depend on agriculture productivity alone. Which other option? नहीं, there are two good options here. Two good options. B also. Is there anybody for A or D? Or I was going to say the next sentence that please don't reveal it, just hide it. अगर आप A और D पे जा रहे हैं, जबकि आपके पास B और C दो ऑप्शन है, इसके अलावा आपको कोई दूसरे ऑप्शन पे जा रहे हैं, इसका मतलब in case you choose option A or D here, it means you are not getting the central idea. Either you have not understood the passage or you do not know the question of central idea. So A and D are totally. अब देखिए, genetically honed crops should be replaced with their wild varieties in our present cultivation practices. Should be replaced. Though it has told you that genetically honed crops gives you their productivity is higher, right? तो ये थोड़ा सा उधर जा रहा है. उधर का मतलब है कि it is rather deviating from the main point. Global climate change adversely affect the productivity of crops. That's a different idea. Now, our total dependence on genetically honed crops entails possible food insecurity, and our food security should not depend on agricultural productivity alone. Yes, both are very good options, and let's zero in on the passage. Hard to predict how changes in climate. There's a risk that such changes will make some plant infectious, more common in all species. Perhaps part of the problem is that centuries of selective breeding have refined the genomes of most high-value crops. They are spectacular at growing in today's conditions, but genetic variations that are not immediately useful to them have been bred out. This is good for yields, but bad for coping with changes. ये summarizing line है. अगर आपने ये समझ लिया, you will get the idea of the second point. Minor disease or even an unknown one could suddenly rampage through a genetically honed crop. Total dependence. I think C has got an edge. Though, yet I would say that we will have to wait for UPSC answer also. Here comes a very close thing. They both are contextually making sense, but the only thing is that कि here एक तो ये कहता है our total dependence on genetically honed crops entails possible. बाकी सारा पार्ट बहुत सही है, ठीक है लिखा हुआ है, लेकिन ये total dependence एक तो total के लिए आपको बैकअप देखना होता है. दूसरा ये our food security should not depend on agriculture productivity alone. Here we are concerned about the productivity alone. It means that whether the plant is able to fight against the diseases, this particular part should also be considered. So both statements are very close, but this C has an edge over B. और वैसे हो भी सकता है कि वो बी भी ले ले, ऐसा बी भी पॉसिबल है, बिकॉज बी इज ऑल्सो मेकिंग सेंस, एक्सेप्ट वी आर वेरी स्पेसिफिक अबाउट द टोटल वर्ड. लेकिन इस कॉन्टेक्स्ट में टोटल जो है वो एक पार्ट पे जा भी रहा है. क्या कह रहे हैं बेटा? It is a suggestion, because you look at this part, the risk given here is, since we have gone for this kind of breeding, genetically variations, we have gone for the productivity alone. We want higher productivity. Okay? And but because of that, there is a risk involved, because the plant will not be able to fight against diseases, right? तो अब ये देखो ना, food security should not depend. आपने क्यों किया productivity पे? Because of we want to ensure that food should be available, sufficient food should be there, but it leads us to a risk, and risk is that the plant will be able to fight against disease if it is attacked by an unknown one. So wo food security should not depend on agricultural productivity alone. It means that the capability of the plant to fight against the disease, the resistance power should also be considered. तो इसलिए ये भी सेंस बना रहा है और ये भी आपका सेंस बना रहा है. अब टोटल डिपेंडेंस, टोटल वर्ड इन दिस कॉन्टेक्स्ट इज गुड, बिकॉज आप जब जेनेटिकली मॉडिफाइड क्रॉप्स एंड ब्रीडिंग एंड ऑल दैट, व्हेन यू फोकस ऑन, व्हाई डू यू डू दिस? बिकॉज यू आर मोर डिपेंडेंट ऑन इट. द टोटल इज ऑल्सो नॉट जस्ट आउट ऑफ प्लेस. तो बोथ आर वेरी क्लोज ऑप्शंस, बट सी के लिए एक हंच फीलिंग है कि ये ज्यादा सही होगा. 22 is assumption. Global climate change can result in the migration of several plant diseases to new areas. Yes, new areas में भी जाएंगे. It will be common too. And then scientific understanding of the wild relatives of present crops would enable us to strengthen food security. Scientific understanding of wild relatives of present, yes, it also supports. Because how the plant will be able to fight, so both should make sense. The last part. You see, when he has discussed, the part of this problem is that this selective breeding that we have done. It means we have refined the genomes of most high value crops, right? And those, but genetic variation that are not immediately useful to them have been bred out. So those breeds have been left out which are not useful for us. We have gone ahead for the very benefit one. So wilder relative का मतलब हो गया वो that have been left out. So because of their productivity is not high, but they are left out, that's why this wilder relatives. Passage 12, good salesman like any other sensible human being learns more from his opponents than from his fervent supporters. You understand fervent supporters? देखिए normal supporter की बात नहीं कर रहा है. A fervent का मतलब इतना जोशीला, इतना उत्साही कि he becomes impracticable, you know, बिल्कुल. So opponent is very important because he, according to the author, that he reminds the person to be on track, to do the right things. He puts him on toes. नादान दोस्त से, एक है ना वो कहावत, नादान दोस्त से दाना दुश्मन भला. दाना means a wise. A wise enemy is better than an naive friend. A naive, so fervent supporter से better. अब ये, so if he wise, he will often play it delivered. But the national unity of free people depends upon a sufficiently even balance of political power. So then he connects it to the very important point, and he talks about a very delicate balance in democracy. But though it hurts, he ought also to pray never to left out without opponents, for they keep him on the path of reason and good sense. The national unity of free people depends upon a sufficiently even balance of political power. To make it impracticable for the administration to be arbitrary, number one, and for opposition to be revolutionary and irreconcilable. Arbitrary मतलब होता है without much thought, just a drastic, unpredictable thing कोई भी कर लिया तो वो एक arbitrary है. तो ये balance, it does not let the administration to go arbitrary, मनमाना कर ले कुछ. On the other hand, it also puts checks and balance on the opposition not to become revolutionary and irreconcilable, then you cannot agree with. ऐसा नहीं उनको revolutionary बना दे और उनके साथ कोई काम ही नहीं किया जा सके, ऐसा नहीं बनाता. It keeps a balance. So author is talking about a balance. I want you to always in the balance passages में be very careful, क्योंकि one or the other wrong options will try to exceed this balance, will try to tilt it one way. पहला क्वेश्चन आपका मैसेज बताइए, क्रिटिकल मैसेज. Without opposition party, the administration in a democracy gets to become more responsible. Without opposition, administration in democracy gets to become more responsible. Does not match. Democracy needs to have revolutionaries in opposition to keep the government alive. Needs to have revolutionaries. Author has not said revolution. So both are contradicting. So do bahar. Rulers in a democracy need the support of opposition for their political survival. No, it is not just about the political survival that is being discussed here. It is just talking about how the balance is required for both ruler and the opposition. So it need the support of opposition for the political survival. It's more of D. In a democracy, the opposition is indispensable for the balance of political power and good governance. It keeps a check and balance. Fervent is, fervor is involvement. It's related to the same word, right? Fervor means this involvement, with excitement when you get intensely you are doing something. So fervent supporter is just ati utsahi type, बहुत ही ज़्यादा overly excited and just the blind supporter kind of. So dear, ये indispensable word is like it is must. It's essential. Without it, the other is not possible. So kind of that. So D is better option. Assumptions. First, in a democracy, strong opposition is required only if the head of the government is indifferent, only if. Then it's making it conditional. Author has not said so. And the more aggressive the opposition, the better the government in a democracy. It's again right or wrong? Wrong, because वो ये कह रहा है revolutionary नहीं बनना है. तो इसका मतलब ये तो दूसरी दिशा में जा रहा है. Both are contradicting. D. Now we have the last नहीं अच्छा last नहीं भी 16 passages we have. Yes, full of more passages. A critical message. There has been no democracy that has grown economically without corporate capitalism. Okay. Corporate capitalism is important, plays a crucial role. Author has described that. तो पहला आंसर क्या किया dear 25th का? Important for economic growth of a state and also for democracy. A sounds good. B कहता है corporate capitalism is imperative for a modern state to achieve its political objective. देखो थोड़ा सा अलग जा रहा है. वैसे तो connecting with the passage, but the imperative तो है. Imperative is okay. Is a must. Modern state to achieve its political objectives. अब ये थोड़ा सा doubtful है, because the economic objectives are also mentioned there in the passage. Social things are also mentioned. So it has confined to it. No state can ensure its economic survival for long without the role of corporate. No, it's an extreme one now. Survival it talks about. Corporate capitalism and democracy have mutual dependence. Our passage is not about the dependence of both. It is rather talking about how democracy depends on corporate capitalism, not the vice versa. And option D has included both. तो ये इसलिए wrong है. A is the better answer. Any doubts? So it means that options requires very careful reading. अब assumption बताइए first वाला. Corporate capitalism promotes the growth of labor force and provides more employment. Absolutely correct. Very moderate assumption, directly follows. Poor and marginalized section of the population are benefited by corporate capitalism. To trickle down effect, yes. Both are valid. Any doubts? Now comes a statement only. मैंने आपको बोला था statement वाले question भी आते हैं. हाँ जी. Trickle down का मतलब होता है, देखो percolates slowly नीचे आता है. वो तो है ही, obviously that's because the corporate is not, it is strongly trickle down effect means that once the money comes, it rotates. Just not about the state only. It is trickle down effect for the poor and marginalized. उसका डेटा आपको यहाँ मिलेगा. And competitive both domestic. For enabling the transition from rural to urban, agriculture to industry. And then अब ये ऐसा करने में क्या करता है, which is inevitable for it generates jobs and there is no other way to fix a country's unemployment challenge without further impetus. Impetus मतलब push to private business. So it has a trickle down effect. So obviously it does go. The capitalist there has all the money, but when he invests it, it goes down slowly. अब आप एग्रीकल्चर से इंडस्ट्री की तरफ कैसे जाते हैं और आप रूरल से अर्बन माइग्रेशन कैसे करते हैं? ट्रिकल डाउन इफेक्ट हो रहा है तभी तो. अब तब तो मैं और कैसे, मैं कोई प्लेनेट की बात थोड़ी कर रहा हूँ. आई एम टॉकिंग अबाउट द रियल लाइफ. ट्रिकल डाउन इफेक्ट कैसे? It says it helps in modernizing the economy and enabling the transition from rural to urban and agriculture to industry. Of course, during this transition, it needs the workforce. And it needs the workforce. So the workforce has the trickle down money. उसको जेब में पैसा पहुंच रहा है ना काम करने की वजह से. Earlier he was just doing agricultural practices in his field. Now he has industry there nearby. So he is working there and earning money. और लास्ट में आप कह रहे हैं intern can be used for greater welfare of the. अरे my goodness, I did not. Greater welfare of the marginalized. अब आपका मुझे लग रहा है हेवी डोज हो गया. 2 साल के पेपर हो गए इसलिए started asking even. चलिए स्टेटमेंट बेस्ड क्वेश्चन. हाँ वो I know that marginalized sector was given there and she was saying that. Best explanation of the statement. I have given you, that's the reason in the booklet you have got 2 statement based sheets. One statement, जो second sheet है, that is a very simple type where the data evaluation is given. All students were invited for a party, so no, some engineers were also invited, kind of questions were there. But the first list is very important because they have got some, in-depth meaning statements. So there you need to solve both, इसलिए आपने अब ये देखिए नेटवर्क ऑफ वॉलंटरी एसोसिएशंस स्टैंड्स एज अ बफर इज देयर in the context you have to get its meaning between the relatively powerless individual and the potentially powerful state. So these voluntary associations, we can say NGOs, and they are working as a buffer. Buffer एक protection के लिए भी आता है, can give you तो. They are there as a bridge between the two. कौन सा ऑप्शन आपने चूज किया इसका बेस्ट एक्सप्लेनेशन? ऑप्शन ए. और कोई ऑप्शन? ऑप्शन ए said emphasizes the inability of the state to enforce its will in practice against the opposition of certain groups within it. इस एक्सप्रेशन में एक इशू आ रहा है. emphasizes the inability of the state to enforce its will. But अगर स्टेट जो है वो it is going for high handedness, arm twisting, bulldozing its orders, उस तरह का अगर जा रहा है into a path and potentially powerful state, right? तो but state if its own, तो मैं ये इस ऑप्शन में बस इशू ये है though it has protection sense here, but that is involved here, so you are not completely off the track. But the point is that it says the inability of the state to enforce its will in practice against the opposition of certain groups. See, it takes individuals out of a state of isolation and give them a chance to participate in the common endeavor. I think this C is more of just bridging, connecting the two things. So from there it makes them the part of this. बाकी के दोनों option. Because state of isolation, because it talks about the powerless. The powerless के साथ में तो आप isolation कर ही सकते हो ना? They are excluded. They are powerless. They are not part of the mainstream. In a way, we can say that. तो आपका D, it permits citizen to have a variety of loyalties and allegiance. ये भी थोड़ा सा connect कर रहा है, लेकिन ये varieties of it actually context के sense में थोड़ा कम weak है. Because it there you have to show the presence of the state, powerful state, and the survival of these people and how the NGOs are playing a role. तो इसलिए better option I think C is right, and D may just says the inability of the state to enforce. 15 is simple, just one question. Single number of inflation is aggregate. ये क्या आंसर चूज करें इसका आपने? B. The present calculation of inflation rate does not correctly measure price rise of individual commodity. Absolutely correct. Price is not mentioned there. A has done a basic error. CPI should be done away with. No support. Inflation data underpresents services in the, what services are given there? Consumption of baskets is yes. Single number is arrived by assigning weights to different commodities and services. So the C is incorrect. Knowledge inflation rate is not really of any use to anybody. Weird claim. Last passage. Trust and entrepreneurship. So CPA की correct answer है इसका. Trust is important though it entails risk. Any doubts in this? Now, so when you solve question arises that on RC, what should we do from now on? Answer is very simple. Just continue with PYQs. They will give you a better idea. And there are plenty of them are left there. So that is the answer to the question about the practice. For the practice regime, one more thing, that when you solve the PYQs, go by the segregation of the questions. Don't solve all the questions. Don't solve a mixed bag, because the segregation of question will give you the clarity that what kind of areas you are weak in or good at. तो जब आप सारे assumption के question एक बार करते हैं, it gives you a better picture. When you solve a paper, अब here मेरे साथ problem ये थी कि you have to discuss paper 2025 and this has all type of questions present. But when you go for the practice, you don't have any such compulsion. So solve inference at a time, solve main idea at a time, solve all the corollary and effect. So one type question at a time you should solve. Year wise nahi kariye. Right? Go by the segregated files that we have provided. In terms of approach to the passage, I told you that first read the question. So you are right, read the question first. And then it depends. You may go to the passage. I would say that go for the passage reading and then come to the options. So first step is this one. Second step is here. And then this is the third thing to approach. Now, if this is one thing, Rajat. अब दूसरा ये भी हो सकता है कि suppose you have the questions of multi statements, 3 statements, 4 statements given, and you are asked to find out an assumption or an implication. In that scenario, I would say that after the question, you can come back to the statements also and then go to the passage. But for all the single options, you should follow this. After question, read the passage. Okay? So it will lessen your time, and you can, while doing the PYQs, you can apply and see that whether it's working in your case, the first one or the second one, and you can choose that. Now, somebody has written a whole para, so let me just check that thing. Acha, this is already, yes, Lavi, I will address your issue. This is a very common issue. When you solve the question, the 2 types of doubts you come across. By and large, the student may have a doubt related to the concepts, which are very basic in nature. We have discussed. Suppose a person does not understand what a particular question is, what kind of options are wrong, this kind of thing. But the by and large, we have discussed this thing. There is another doubt, and that doubt is related to your strategy. Should I do this first? Should I do that first? What kind of question I should skip? What should never skip? This kind of strategy issue, not the knowledge issue. Knowledge issue is just here. So I don't address this knowledge issue because you already know, you can revise. And any student who has been absent should always go for the basics first and then only should go for the questions. About the strategy, I can discuss. Here I will include the strategy, one doubt asked by an online student, and which is a common problem to most of you. Such questions where you are getting confused, like we face the situation here. Should I answer it on the basis of the passage or some? So the person has written that whenever I try to solve it and just stick to the passage, I remain confused. When I connect to my GS knowledge, my general awareness, GK, then I get it correct. I am unable to connect. But the question here arises that where to put the line. Am I allowed to go into my own GS knowledge and find out the answer from there? Or should I strictly adhere to the passage? If nothing is given there, should I? So this question, this particular doubt is the first one. Can the GS and GK in your previous knowledge pool, or it is only the passage? What should be the case? So the passage, RC passages strictly demand that your answer should be based on the passage. This is the common rule. Up here, while making the answers, as we have seen in some of the questions, while writing the options, and here we can say that mostly in assumption questions. Sometimes examiners have written such statements and the UPSC has accepted that as correct also, because so this examiner knows that he is preparing a CSAT paper. So of course he knows that his audience is that audience who knows the GS, can establish the link also. Both of the things. So the exceptional questions where the answers are a bit challenging or surprising, जैसे मैंने आपको previous question में दिखाया कि UPSC's official answer is world fisheries has also been included. The passage is talking about the southern ocean, that is specific region. So there they allow you to apply your understanding and expand it and think of the effect on the larger platform, the larger part, and the world fishery was acceptable as a correct one. But in another question where the author talks about that when a person travels from one place to offshore places, foreign places, he carries with him, he gets to know that what is parochial and what is universal, what is local and what is universal. So he talks about certain basic traits, values such as justice, compassion, and that, and then he says everywhere these are present, but in different forms. So the person who travels has, because of his greater exposure, is better able to understand this. अब उस पे एक क्वेश्चन उन्होंने बनाया कि can this person who travels a lot, can he sort out the problem between the conflict of the people? तो ये सुनने में ऐसा लगता है कि हाँ, it connects because the person has wider exposure and then अब यहाँ पे GS knowledge आ रही बाहर से कि yes, when he is going to sort out the conflict, the person should be the other parties which are on conflict, which are at loggerheads, they must also ready to listen to somebody. लोग अपना कोर्ट में केस लेके जाते हैं, sometimes they bring the case and they don't agree with the verdict. Similarly, if the person has brought, the two conflicting parties have brought their case to a person who has traveled a lot and he has given a verdict, or he may not be able to establish sort out the conflict between them because if the parties do not agree. Moreover, the passage has also said that the people who wish to, yani such travelers, it means all types of travelers who do not wish to learn something, they do not come into that category. But ये एक बड़ा thin line difference है. You get confused. So from here to here, I would say that you can make it a rule that you will stick to the passage. You will have to take a line. One or two exceptional answer that UPSC is given sometimes where unless we go beyond the passage and apply this, we don't get the veracity of that answer. We don't find that correct, that answer is correct. But they have gone into that. We cannot make that as a rule, please. We should stick to the passage. वो भले कल को आपका आंसर रॉन्ग आ गया उसके बेस पे, but you don't leave the general path. Just because of a few exceptions have happened, we cannot change the strategy for learning, right? So always stick to the passage. If the data is there, fine. If the data is not there, we will, by data I mean that there should be a direct connection or there could be an indirect connection. अब this indirect connection, direct में तो कोई issue नहीं है. The question becomes moderate if there is a direct connection. But if there is an indirect connection, we should think that yes, the indirect connection, for that the base is given in the passage. You can accept that. It means in both ways, direct and indirect, it is given the passage, then the answer will be chosen. If there is no connection whatsoever, you can leave that. So don't use your GS. GS and GK is only used to comprehend the author, to understand the passage. But they cannot play any role in giving the answer as a subject matter. For subject matter, we will rely solely on the passage. तो इसलिए आप जब भी passage पढ़ेंगे, in the passage you will always look at that which particular place, what kind of party, इसकी बात हो रही है, उसके हिसाब से फोकस करके आगे बढ़ेंगे, ठीक है? So this is one thing. And out of 27 or 29 questions, you will find this kind of doubts in 1 or 2 questions, sometimes 2 to 3 maximum, otherwise not more than this. So itself, it's not a very big issue. I have told you that's part of your strategy to not solve 100% questions. Don't do that. You can skip 2-3 questions to be on the safer side. So more PYQs and you will start getting the clarity, you will start realizing. Now when you solve, the practice regime is clear, कि आपको करना क्या है, ये clear है. How often you should solve RC questions? I would say that it rests on you. I cannot dictate any term here because however you place, you know it better. However, you should not have a very long dry patch. कि आप एक महीने के बाद बैठें करने. Don't do that. So maybe once a week. If it is affordable, once a week. I would say that once a week is good. And then once a week you have taken up 10 questions of assumptions in a single sitting. Fair enough. But 5 questions mat kariyega. 5 will not give you a very good clarity, Because to arrive at any conclusion, you must have sufficient number of questions. So कम से कम तो 10 करिए, minimum 10 questions should be solved. Then you realize. In the 5, sometimes it happens that you have got all 5 correct or 4 correct. Other time you have got just 2 correct. What will you conclude? You can't. So minimum 10 question in single sitting. Minimum, I am saying. Otherwise, if you ask me what comes to my heart, I would say कम से कम, well, 15 is a good number, 15 to 20. It gives you good grinding and good exposure. So once a week, number of questions, minimum 10 questions. इससे कम मत करिए. 10 questions will take 20 minutes. I think anybody can afford 20 minutes in a week for RC and finish PYQs. अब आते हैं CSAT exam. Mock test should be taken very, very seriously. CSAT exam is, today I may exceed this class by 10 minutes because of it being the last class, and I hope that you will bear with me. देखो, अब coming to this कि CSAT का पूरा game आप देखिए. CSAT is not just about the clarity of basics या concept clarity. This is the one step. Some students, after doing this first one, they think that they are ready for the exam. No. You have only studied the core subjects and you have the concept clarity. you are yet not ready to deal with the speed and time and with the pressure that you will come across. So from here you cannot straight away go to the CSAT paper. After this you must go for the second step, and that second step is your practice regime. RC questions we have done, अब practice आपका start होता है, self practice. तो ये second part है, because while doing this you will have to go back to the first also sometimes for the concepts clarity. So all, if there are bubbles in your preparation, in your concepts, then it must be clarified and cleared at this status, at this point, at this juncture. And after that comes the third stage. And the third stage is when you are ready to evaluate the other things. Your concepts are clear, you have good command on maths and reasoning and RC, but with the speed, with the accuracy, with the pressure that you face in the exam, you have to write the mock test. So unless you attempt the mock test, you are not ready for CSAT. Clear? At times some students have said, sir, I didn't write any mock, but I appeared in the paper and so I missed it. तो ये सब स्पीड का भी, एक्यूरेसी का भी और प्रेशर का भी, ये सब आपकी अच्छा एक्सपोजर आपको मिलता है. तो प्लीज कीप दिस ऑन माइंड. दिस इज योर डायरेक्शन. नाउ व्हाइल सॉल्विंग द क्वेश्चन ऑफ मॉक टेस्ट, आई एम स्ट्रेट अवे गोइंग टू द सीसेट पेपर. तो आपका यहाँ पर है, ये तो झंडा आपका बाद में फहराएगा, पहले आपको इन तीनों स्टेटस से जाना पड़ेगा. अब देखिए सेकेंड थिंग, that when you solve CSAT questions, how many questions you must attempt? So I would say minimum 40 to maximum 50 questions. This is your bracket. Target these questions. Minimum, maximum, in between, depending on individual's accuracy level. Safer side. अगर इसमें आपके 15% questions, 10-15% wrong भी हो जाते हैं, still you clear the exam safely. But if you attempt only 34-35%, then you are very much on the, yes, it's shaky. You may be on this side or this side. So don't take risk. 40 minimum. ठीक है. अब आप जितना कम रखते हैं 40 to 50, तो of course your focus is more. You have more time per question. So in various ways it helps you. I have already told you that another figure, important figure for you is that just keep on your mind that you have got 2 minutes per question. I'm talking about RC. Nobody to say about maths or something. 2 minutes per question. At times it may exceed to 2.5 minutes. If you are very sure that you will get the answer by spending another couple of seconds, then it may stretch to. But this is the exception case. 3 minutes you have spent on a question. Allowed, but in those cases, rare cases, it means that if a student is writing mock test and while he is solving a question, he has simply forgotten the timing, तो फिर he is just doing a harm rather than, क्योंकि आपने क्या किया, आपने अगर मान लिया 5 minutes लगा करके क्वेश्चन पैसेज को सॉल्व कर लिया, then this 5 minutes is going to cost you heavily because you are going to lose 2-3 more questions. There may be some questions in your paper where within 2 minutes, within 1.5 minutes, you could have got the answer. We have seen the questions of different level. So please be very particular to the time limit. Keep it during the practice regime, keep 2 minutes per question. In the exam hall, it may be 2.5 in rare cases or 3 rare cases. But by and large 2 minutes. तो एक क्वेश्चन का आंसर निकाल के खुश होना. अब देखिए 23 में क्या हुआ, मैथ्स वाज वेरी डिफिकल्ट, तो सम स्टूडेंट्स हु गॉट entangled with maths, they spent so much time on it that they lost the time for other sections, or it spoiled their mood. आप टाइम लगा दो 10 मिनट और क्वेश्चन फिर भी नहीं हो रहा है, then you will obviously be upset. So dear, this is one thing. So this point 40 to 50 and timing per question during the practice. तो अब आप बैठे 20 questions या 15 questions if you are going to attempt or 10 minimum, you set the timer first. 10 question, okay, 20 minutes. Now you start reading and solving it. तो सारा गेम ये है कि उस स्पीड गिवन टाइम में करना है सही, ये नहीं कि सिर्फ मैंने सही कर लिया एंड आई हैव स्पेंट 35 मिनट्स ऑन 10 क्वेश्चंस, नॉट गुड. While solving the mock, जनरली फर्स्ट बैच के स्टूडेंट से मुलाकात बहुत मुश्किल से हो पाती है. दिस इज द रियलिटी. दे रियली गेट बैक बिकॉज दे गेट engage in their own stuff. बैक ऑफ माइंड ये रहता है सीसेट तो ओवर हो गया. यस, yeah, Rakshita, if you got 20 to 23 correct out of 27, then it's a good score. बट टाइम लिमिट को उसमें रखिए, 40 मिनट्स के अंदर हो जाना चाहिए. 40-45 मिनट्स मॉक टेस्ट. यानी आई एम टॉकिंग अबाउट द फुल लेंथ टेस्ट वेयर यू हैव एवरीथिंग इन. एंड रिमेंबर, व्हेन यू सॉल्व अ सेक्शनल टेस्ट, you will find one type, you know, you will have certain experience. The moment from this sectional test you go to a mock test where all the 3 sections are given, your experience will change, your feelings will change. पता नहीं क्या होता है. Though otherwise individually you are doing okay, but the moment they come together there is another type of challenge. So that's why it's very important to go through this process. So when you solve mock test, you get 120 minutes, 2 hours. You know you have to solve 40 to 50 out of 80. And you should, during the practice and while writing the mock test, you should not give yourself the entire 120 minutes. So during the practice, make it a rule that just spare 10-15 minutes. You give yourself 110 minutes. Or maybe 105 minutes during your home mock tests here. 110 minutes में आपको solve करना, 10 मिनट पहले करिए. अब the paper is, you know, the A4 size page. You have already seen that the passage starts here. And then there is a question, and then we have this. While choosing an option, suppose you after reading passage 1, you are still confused between A, B, C, D. But you are sure that either A is the answer or B is the answer. I mean, you are getting confused, but you are confused between 2 options. And here, while solving passage number 2, first we'll discuss this, that here you see that you have spent 2 minutes, but still you are at the crossroad, you are not sure. So I would say that always make a mark. You know, on this question, do some marking. Don't spend more time here. Immediately go to the next passage. If you have got the answer here, good. So the more time you spend here, still getting confused, it means you are delaying the process of getting a right answer. Simple answer, which is given in another passage, in another question. So jaldi se move kariye. Achha, this marking will help you, because it's not only in RC, in maths also, reasoning also, you will come across this kind of scenario quite often. So wherever you get confused between 2 close options, always have a marking for such questions. Don't choose the answer. This 10-15 minutes that you have, you know, saved here, after this, you know, you have done this, you need to come in this 10 minutes and look at all such questions where you were confused. If there is a need, you should go through, and there you can give it a second try. Or if there is a need, but I'm saying everything depends on the need. Suppose in the first go, when you have solved the paper from question number 1 to question number 80, you must see that how many all the questions that you have done, 2.5 minutes you have given yourself for each question. जितने भी questions हो गए हैं, suppose in the first go itself you have solved 43 questions. There is no need to go back and attempt these questions. But in the first go, with following this time limit, if you have done only 33 questions, now there is a need to go for this kind of questions. So since you have already marked it, either A or C is correct, So in that given time, you should reattempt them and then give the answer. So that's why it's very important that from question 1 to question number 80 you should go first. आप बीच बीच में अपने आप को इतनी देर के लिए रोक देंगे if you just in order to solve that given question which is maybe otherwise very difficult. So if you are stopping yourself for so much of time, it means you are not going to see the last questions and the time will be over. So first phase I will try to go all such questions which are within my reach. जैसे कहते हैं low hanging fruit. In the given time you are asked to pluck as many fruits as possible. तो आपको low hanging पे जाना है. आप एक high वाले के लिए jump कर रहे हैं and you are wasting your time. वो तो बाद में आना चाहिए ना. So similar this thing it should be. So that's why this 10-15 minutes should not be used. Give yourself 110 minutes. और एक होता है problem the student face की they don't know, they don't realize whether they are going with the pace or they are slow. How to know this thing? Many students get to know this fact that they are doing it painfully slowly because once the 1.5 hour is over or 1 hour is over, then they get to know, and then for the rest of the time they are panicked. So natural intelligence भी काम नहीं करता है because of the panic button. So what should you do for this? देखिए this particular thing 110 minutes that you have को निकाल के इसको डिवाइड करिए 4 पार्ट्स में, राइट? So each span of 27 to 28 minutes you have. 110 divided by 4. The moment your one time, this first quarter of time is over, quarter of time is over, you must cross check whether you have done 1/4 of the question targets or not. It means 40 to 50 you have to solve. So from 40 to 50 questions, you must have solved 9, 10 to 12, 13 questions. कुछ इस bracket में होना चाहिए. You can cross check. During the mock test, you can always keep a pace. What happens that suppose you found that you have done only 6-7 questions and the first quarter of time is gone. You have to increase your speed here in the second and the third and the fourth quarter. So you are in advance, you are informed. So there is no chance of panic. But if you get to know that you are slow, after the 3 quarters have gone, you can't change it in the last quarter. You will be just panicked. So to avoid the panic, keep it abreast. So keep it abreast with the speed, with the time, and this is a good thing कि 1/4 हो जाना चाहिए आपका हर के साथ. Tune every cell thing. So CSAT is not just about knowledge test. It's not just about the speed test. It is actually a blending of everything. Your presence of mind, your smartness at times. So don't bring in that literary approach also. The answer should be very ideal and the answer you are hell-bent that from every angle it should be make sense. You're just choosing it because the other options are less appropriate. So this will be the approach. At times you will find that you are not choosing an option because it's not very ideal, not very correct. But look at the other 3 options. If they have got some glaring errors, then obviously, naturally, this answer is correct. So go by this. इसलिए I said street smart. Don't follow idealism every time in the aptitude test. That's it. To gauge, yes, to review your paper, to revise your paper. If you feel that yes, कहीं पे ज़रूरत है कुछ और करना है, you can do that. But I always go for the calculated risk. Don't go for the blind risk. Some students have this कि okay, अगर मैंने बाकी के 10 questions नहीं कर पाया हूँ मैं, तो I will just write C in all 10. So at least its question is 1/4. Correct. अगर आपके 3 C सही हुए और चौथा C गलत हो गया, तो it is back to 0. So it is not going to help you. Sorry, it's 1/3. I wrote it's 1/3. So I mentioned here 1/3 कि 3 C are right and score is your for the each correct answer you are given 2.5 marks. For each wrong answer 0.83, यानी 1/3 of this will be deducted. Everybody knows about this. Yes? तो मैं वही कह रहा था कि अगर 3 सही आपके जो है वो चौथा सही भी हो गया और 3 गलत हैं तो स्कोर तो 0 ही हो जाएगा ना. तो इसलिए there is no benefit. तो कैलकुलेटेड रिस्क का मतलब जहां पे टू ऑप्शंस के बीच में यू आर कंफ्यूज, तो इट्स योर ड्यूटी टू मार्क, डू द मार्किंग. Be in touch. It's very easy to approach, and because just two of us are here, it's not a big team of like in GS you have. So whenever you face problem during your practice regime, you can always call the receptionist and ask about the time to meet me. I'll be keep visiting because the batches after batch is there. So I'll be at the center. Please ask them. You can come either before the class or after the class, but do inform in advance. Okay. Okay. So all the very best. No, the corollary questions are given there in the inference sheet. Don't look for it. It is sufficient. It's sufficient. Sufficient. Assumption के लिए आप you can fly with the point that we have discussed. You were out. I just discussed. You can all. You can always call here the receptionist, and she will tell you about my schedule and my timing, and she will also inform me if you want to meet in person. There's no issue with that. और प्रैक्टिस करिए, आ जाएगी. ठीक है. ये अच्छा कर रहे हो, सही है. ओके. PYQs कर लो और assumption के वो क्वेश्चन देख लो सारे कैसे करने के बाद, then you will arrive at some conclusion. Be clear to you. Huh? I was teaching you. How do you know? How do you know? Online batch. Online batch, I'm saying. This center here. Okay. CSAT. I was in 2019. At that time, you were preparing for 26. अच्छा अच्छा अच्छा. Early bird. यहाँ पे बच्चे ज़्यादा. Right, right. What's your name? Chazy. Chezo. Right, right. You told me the spelling the other day. What have you done academically? What have you done academics? Which college?
That's all. I work in our campus. There is no one in
The south and north, two
Yes,
campuses
yes,
they have.
South, north and north.
So anyway, don't degrade your course. You said that just nothing normal
This time I
graduation.
gave the
It's,
time I
it's,
come to
everything is equal.
paid for
Okay.
for the all round.
This time it was clear to you that why this assumption is right, why that is barring one or two, or but otherwise.
50%.
I haven't actually. Even earlier also I was teaching at other place. It's just a coincidence that you saw me today here. I have been there. I because of the small portion that I take up, so I have plenty of time. Teach at different places because of the. अब like is the core subject वाले faculty के पास इतना ज़्यादा bulk काम होता है, like 80 hours अब history somebody is teaching वो 100 hours, but here we have RC, 18-20 hours. Yes, I was into soft skills in corporate. Then I started. I was that into actually I had to travel a lot. It was family and then. No, I haven't come from that UPSC back. I didn't appear for that. I was into MBA and हमारा route इधर से आ रहा है. Not so strong, I won't say that. It's like language I know. Of course, one for RC, one must know the language as well. Hmm. And you, which college you are from? Cousin was a faculty there. History department. You know, must be. So you taught by him?
He was a history. But the back.
No, I didn't. I did because at that time, during our time, this exam was humongous. Like two optionals, and then you have this and that. So it was a पूरा पंडित ही बना देता था. मतलब ये exam है इतना deeply scholarly. I didn't have that. I was more inclined towards the private sector. मुझे लग रहा था वहाँ पे जाके और अच्छा कर सकते हैं बजाय इसके. तो मैं इधर फिर